It's Friday!
Yep, you're going to do a thing like, I know what you're going to do. You're going to go, hey, it's nearly the weekend. And what I've been saying for the last 5 months is like, and your point? It's like Friday's the same as Sunday. I mean, like Thursday's the same as every freaking thing. It's all the same.
No. Friday's definitely not the same as Sunday. I do not have the same inside me as I do on a Friday.
Why? How come?
Well, now that I've sort of slightly started creeping back to work, I don't feel quite the same as I did. I agree when everyone was in lockdown and every day was just the same. That was terrible. But
yes, I mean, that was. I remember we were saying, like, do you know what the day is? No, I don't know. Do you know what the day is? No, I don't know. Well, it made no difference. I mean, that was the point.
We should get this out there nice and early, actually. I'm quite excited for tomorrow. Because tomorrow, I will be seeing a couple of friends in the world of radio, and I hope you will as well, Russell, but I'll be seeing a couple of friends in the world of radio who haven't seen for
tomorrow evening.
Yes.
Is that in a sort of Hammersmithy way?
Yes,
oddly enough, yes.
For a very, very long time, and I'm very, very excited.
Are you going to be bringing Lambrini and some hula hoops?
I will be bringing a sleeping bag and some coffee for the Sunday morning. But anyway,
you're staying over.
Hey.
This is a date for you. This is a date.
No,
you're going on a date.
No,
I'm leaving. I'm not staying.
No, this is a shocking excuse to get inebriated.
Yeah, because this particular person, I've never known them drink.
If you believe that, you believe it.
You know who else you'll be meeting for the first time? I'll just do this.
Actually, no, but it's not for the first time of meeting. I have to tell you.
What, in real life?
That was at your book.
Right. Oh yes, when he tried to take it over, silly bitch. Right, Chrissy Holt. I'm going to read some of these comments. My brother-in-law, because one of our guests, which is in about an hour's time, one of our first guests, is talking about having the worst stutter, and then Michael Palin, as in round the world in Michael Palin, helped him. My brother-in-law had a terrible stammer, but when he married Jen, I don't know who Jen is, he didn't stutter at all. Well, he was too scared. And at the age of 75, he still doesn't. She was good for him.
Maybe Jen is Chrissy's sister. Do you know that's?
Well, we have to do the maths here.
Do you know what?
We have to do the maths and assume that she is.
Hang on, that sounded so much easier to say in my head. Chrissy's sister.
Chrissy's sister. Yeah, you just Ed Grossman straight in there. New Facebook. What a load of crap.
Oh, Ed.
What have they done to it? I don't know what they do. Dave, thank you. Dave sent me some terrific messages earlier today. I have responded. No, Phil, they're really, really, really great. Yeah, really great. Dave's being so helpful.
Oh, my. Sorry, the Queen of Champagne has joined us. Salute.
She has.
Morning, Tina Holt.
Two things about Tina Holt. One, she's the Champagne Queen. I think it's Veuve Clicquot. I don't know. Is it Veuve Clicquot, Tina? I think it's mostly Veuve Clicquot that you drink. I don't know. I don't think we've ever met. And the other thing is you've gone to one of these, is it Weight Watchers or Slim World or, Salad Bar World or whatever it is, and you're like losing weight like my dad used to lose at Kempton Park. Wow. Good morning to Martin Bell.
Acknowledge.
Yeah. She's losing Bollinger. Okay. Nice. Very nice.
Before we get too heavy, can I show you what I've done? I've finally taken the step towards becoming an even older fart. Yes, I did just say that.
Really wouldn't be possible, but okay, try. Go on.
Look. I found this in the garage the other day. So I thought I would decant my whiskey.
Oh,
look at that. And now it's on my desk. What is that?
Now, do you know what they call that type of decanter?
I think this is a brandy one, actually. So it's probably
no, you fool. Do you know what type they call that design? Do you know what they call it?
Oh, cut glass, crystal.
No, it's crystal, obviously. It's called a ship's decanter. Hold it up again.
It's heavy. Hang on.
Oh, stop bitching. Right, that is a ship's decanter. It is called, Philip Dave of Hertfordshire, a ship's decanter because you will see the bottom of it is wide. We'll come back to you talking about wide bottoms in a minute. Yeah, so it doesn't slide around on the ship.
Oh, that's very clever. I like that.
There you go. Andrea Lucas, it's not worth it. Look, he got it from a garage. He got it from a garage with shell tokens or something, Andrea. It's never worth a fortune. Ah.
How nice. I really like that. And then I got a little matching glass as well.
This amuses me every time. For a minute, I am Roger Moore. Okay. Right.
Andy Lucas, you're very kind, but my test is probably not worth a fortune.
No, it's really not. Chrissy Holt, right? Chrissy, you cannot leave us off.
No.
Come on, we need to know why. Right, back to Alan Samuels, right? Morning guy. Now, Alan Samuels, I used to see Alan when I lived in North West London some years ago. I'd see Alan most mornings sitting there, usually with his brother and a charming young lady, having coffee and stuff. Morning, guys. Day off for my birthday. Oh, happy birthday, Alan. I'm in the right place today to deal with my depression over my age. Age is but a number, which in my case is a freaking huge number, but it's how you feel up here, Alan. You know what I'm saying? It's how you feel up there. The whole thing is how you feel in your head and trying to keep your body in one bit. Right, Chrissy, I got to know why you
Alan, it's really important to remember this, okay? The older one gets, the less of an insult it becomes when someone says that your age is your IQ, okay? So just think of it. It's not terrible. I mean, the way I look now, if someone was to turn to me and say that your age is your IQ, I'd be very depressed about that.
Yeah, I'd be a genius. I would be right up there with Carl Sagan.
No, you'd be borderline Mensa.
Close. What is this? Martin Bell just shared you to my group Open Mind Mallorca. Do you pronounce it Mallorca?
I just say Mallorca.
No, it's not Mallorca. Isn't that a different place?
Isn't it?
Is it the same place?
Oh,
it's a different place, isn't it?
Mallorca's with a J, isn't it?
Yeah, Mallorca and Mallorca. Martin throws some geography between the two of us is just crap. Right, thank you very, very much, Martin. That is great. Richard Vero. We always had a guy at the OA. That's the Old Elanians. That's what they call people who went to Dulwich, Old Elanians, because Dulwich was founded in 1619 by Sir Edward Alleyn, who was a contemporary of Shakespeare. We always had a guy at the OA Rugby Club who always developed a stammer when it was time for him to buy his round.
That's very rude.
It is rude, but it's probably true, Richard. Richard, by the way, watching and listening to the show from not just Germany, but I get a kick out of it every time I say this, Colditz. Colditz, like escape from. Colditz. Yeah, that Colditz. It's just extraordinary, isn't it? Mallorca is correct. Thank you, Martin. It is Mallorca.
I love it. Everyone else has been running from Colditz for years, and he runs to it.
I know. He runs to Colditz. He tells me horrible things about it. Not the castle, which is a monument, and he's deeply involved in all of that stuff, but the right-wing groups in Germany, a lot of them hang out in Colditz. Ooh. And they ain't nice. Well, they weren't nice to start with, but they're really not nice. Mallorca is the tourist version, says Martin Bell. Mallorca is correct. Palma de Mallorca. I don't know what that means either.
Alas, my Spanish isn't once what it was.
Like an aftershave.
Technically, it was never existent. So I say it wasn't what it once was. I mean, I just Spanish, which is frustrating, actually, because I would have liked to have done. I've always had quite a nice fascination with languages. Been rubbish at speaking them, but I've always been fascinated by it. And I always try and make an effort.
How's English coming on?
Country. No, whenever I go to another country, I always try and make an effort to speak the language that is
like America.
I was going to say it's primarily why I stick to only America, South Africa, or Australia,
and New Zealand.
Stop stealing my punchlines.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you were going there. Palma de Mallorca does sound like a very nice cologne. Hello.
Doesn't it?
I do think I'm smelling nice. I'm wearing Palma de Mallorca. Hints of lemons with notes of diesel fumes.
No, hang on a second. Hints of lemon. Surely that would be more Italian.
Yeah. Citronella and stuff like that.
Maybe there's hints of tapas or something.
What the hell? What the hell is this? Right, we've missed this. Ed Grossman, Russ Phil. Do we think the cast of Jesus Christ Super? What is this? This is completely random. Should be Jewish. Why? Do I think the cast of Cats should all be cats? No, they're just actors.
You think when they're in France that perfume's called eau de toilette?
Eau de toilette.
No, that's what we call it over here.
It's not called toilet. It's toilette. It's spelled differently. It's toile with a double T-E.
No, I know, because it's toilette over here. But I'm saying, I'm wondering if in France, if maybe they call it eau de toilette. I don't know.
That's domestos. Little dab of domestos behind the ears. I said it. What, Ed? I don't get the point of your question. Do I think that the cast of Jesus Christ Superstar should be Jewish? Do I think that everyone in West Side Story should be Puerto Rican? No, they're actors and actresses. You know.
I think you shouldn't even ask them what religion they are.
No, it's a weird question. Although, if I'm going to go tangentially on this, I kind of think if you have the option, if you were going to have a character who was gay, I'm not saying it should be mandatory, but it would be preferable, although not necessary, it would be better to have a gay person portraying that role. I just think out of courtesy, although then people would say to me, well, Russ, oh, what? So somebody playing James Bond should have been a spy in a former life. Well, no, obviously not. It's just a thought. I don't think it should be mandatory.
But do you know why I actually disagree with that? Is because even though I know that there are loads of people out there who get hideously insulted if someone is portraying someone who is not necessarily from similar background, should we say, in everyday life. The reason why I completely disagree with it is because I believe what better way to educate someone who's not from said background than making them research that for a role.
Yeah.
That actually helps to educate people. Just a thought.
It does, but it helps to educate that one person. I think I was thinking slightly broader in that there are so many actors and actresses from every diversity, whatever the heck you want, you can find, and there's billions of great actors and actresses out there. And it seems a shame not to give them a fair crack of the whip.
Well, quite.
That's what I'm thinking under those circumstances. I mean, I would extend that if the role was somebody who was in a wheelchair, if you could find the right actor or actress who was in a wheelchair to portray that part, I think it would give it more. It would give it more weight. It would give it more gravitas and more believability. But acting is pretending to be somebody else, so that argument is, open to a hell of a lot of discussion and debate. It's a whole can of worms. Anyway, all started by that Ed Grossman, troublemaker extraordinaire. Alan Samuels answering. Alan Samuels, they should all have long hair and beards, even the women.
Some of them do.
Now, Ed, I'm still lost here. Russ. So it's okay for white actors to play black actors? No. Those days, that ship sailed, man. That ship sailed. That ship's gone. You can't do that. I don't think you could do that.
No. Hang on. Again, what? I'm not so sure I agree with that.
Oh, come on. Not in 2020 as we head to 2021. No. I don't think it's.
I am not talking about for a second someone should put makeup on to imply they're from different.
Doing blackface, what they call doing blackface.
Yeah, I absolutely don't agree with that. But in exactly the same way that there are people crying out for people like Idris Elba to be able to play James Bond, I think it's a two-way street. I'm sorry.
It's a two-way street. No, that I
because it can't be one and the other. So if you're saying in that case that it's not okay for someone who's of white heritage to portray someone of black heritage, whatever way it be, unless of course the color of their skin is essential, shall we say, to the storyline. Let's just imagine it's not. But if you're saying that it's not okay for someone who's of white background to portray a character who, typically speaking, is of black heritage, then you say it's okay the other way around.
I'm not saying it's okay the other way around. I would not be happy seeing, James Bond. This is where it gets difficult, because one is ethics and one is rewriting history. So ethically, anyone should be able to play James Bond. Just bear with me for a second. All right. Anyone should be able to play James Bond. But it should be a bloke, because it was, but you know, if you're going to follow the book, he was white and he was male. That's how it was. You know, it would be no different. Say you were going to remake a film about the moon landings and having Idris Elba play Neil Armstrong. Well, that would be patently ridiculous. Not that he couldn't act the part. That's not what we're discussing. It would be, well, that doesn't make any sense. That would be just ludicrous, because Neil Armstrong wasn't black, right? Same way you wouldn't get Daniel Craig portraying Martin Luther King, because that would be utterly ridiculous, because Martin Luther King was black. It would be peculiar, odd, and wrong. If you got, I don't know, you can pick anybody you like, Matthew McConaughey, anybody to do that, right? So it is. So you're right. It's a two-way street. Right?
Yeah, it's a bit cross with me now.
Why? Why? I don't think it's getting cross. I don't think it's getting cross with you. I mean, the only time that blackface, I mean, that's what they call it. I'm not being rude. That's what they call the makeup process. You know that. Was in one of my favorite, Tropic Thunder, where Robert Downey Jr. plays this ridiculous role. And I thought that was okay, morally, I don't know, but it made me laugh. And he played it in such a ridiculous way. That was it. Okay. So yesterday, hang on, we haven't finished with Tina Holt. Tina, you have not got off the, why did you throw your decanter at the wall and smash it to a million pieces? Wow. Who annoyed? Was it Phil? Did Phil say something to you that really annoyed you, and you just picked up a beautiful lead crystal decanter, threw it against the wall? I can understand that. Martin Bell, do I remember the black and white minstrel soaps? Yeah. Oh, God, I hated that show. Not from any moral grounds, because I was a little kid, so that hadn't really been an issue. And it wasn't an issue at the time. We can't rewrite history, you know. It was different. You look back on it now, you think, what the hell was that? But it was on for about 20 years. It had a huge run, and it was the major Saturday night variety show on BBC. The nation's broadcasting, British Broadcasting Company. It was the pivotal show around which all the other entertainment on a Saturday night hung. The black and white minstrel show. I mean, they got rid of it because it proved, I think, for two reasons. One, it was morally incorrect, and two, the ratings dropped. Same with Paul Daniels, where they just dumped him. They have a habit of just dumping people that is incredible.
Now, it should have been the 50th anniversary of Justin.
I think that Paul Daniels, honestly, he was the absolute staple part of my Saturday nights. I used to love that program. I don't know why.
Brilliant magician, quite extraordinary. Brilliant magician, and a very good, what they would call like a mentalist, who could do extraordinary stuff. Much more than that. Very, 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 very talented man. I had dinner with him once. It was extraordinary. And I talked to him about how he remembers stuff, and he would talk. I think I mentioned this once before, Phil. He would make up these mind palaces, which I cannot do. I have tried. Absolutely, I'm rubbish at it. Can't do it. But he would invent a mind palace, and every room and every object within a room would help him remember whatever that's why the memory was so ferocious, and he could walk through this entire palace. It's a well-known trick. It's not a trick. I mean, it's a well-known mechanism for remembering incredibly complicated stuff. I can't do it. Absolutely cannot do it. If I don't write it down, it doesn't get done. Simple as that.
Tell me about it.
I have a huge notepad. I have by my desk always a notepad covered endlessly with my notes and about absolutely everything. And if I don't write it down, it will not get done. Cross it off when it's got done. Also gives you a sense of satisfaction. Kimmy Lashmar. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Now, one of our guests, you see, you've already upset him. He hasn't even been on. This is your fault, Phil. I'm blaming you. Michael Derrig Adams. Looking forward to being on the show. Will I receive the link soon? Michael, I don't know. Depends if Phil's in the mood. Can't say.
Maybe.
Up to Phil. Maybe you will. Maybe you won't. That's how we roll.
It's a bit
No,
hippie.
Ed, you misunderstood Ed Grossman, Phil. It said, Phil, not cross. You agree with me. Yeah, sure.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Sorry, with you all the way.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, you'll have all the information from Phil. Just honestly, you'll be fine.
Do you see, Ed, the default position that I normally adopt is I annoy people. So I just expected I've annoyed them.
You annoy people. I will challenge anyone to say that Phil and Dave can be annoying.
Or on thin ice, Kane. Shut it.
Thin ice. I can hear the thing cracking underneath my sylph-like physique. Right. Oh, God, Chrissy Holt. I'm going mad. Hang on. Well, it's not my fault you got 2 Holts. What's the chances? Russ, go to Specsavers. Ha, 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 ha. It was me that threw my decanter because Mike annoyed me. Smashed. Chrissy, Jesus, you threw a heavy cut glass decanter at your other half because he annoyed you. The hell did he do? Smashed it, and all he did was laugh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. One day, I want Mike on the show. We want to talk to Mike. Poor bastard. That's what I got to say about it. Poor bloke. He gets a decanter thrown at his head. What the hell? How badly did he annoy you? And because Phil and I are incredibly nosy about other people's lives, what did he do to annoy you?
Oh, no.
What did he? No, come on.
Oh, no.
Everybody wants to know that. Everybody
Hang
wants
on.
to know that. What's the matter? Has it arrived? What is it?
Something.
Oh, no, God, what? Rash?
Is it just me, or does this screen look bare to you?
Looks a bit bare.
What's missing?
The rolling captions that everybody loves.
Great.
There you go. That's all right.
Heaven's sake.
I'll dock it off your pay.
Apologize.
So frankly, what's that?
I said, no, don't do that. I'll have to pay you.
Yeah, precisely, of course.
I'll go into mine.
Right, Chrissy, come on, spill the beans. Give us the skinny on the deal. What did your husband do that annoyed you so much you picked up a decanter? Whew. I just get a look. I get a look that could turn you to a pillar of salt. That's it. Nothing more needs to be said. Just a look. Swear to God, it would go through. You ever seen? I'll tell you how bad the look is, right? The American military, which I'm always fascinated. I watch endless videos about it. And they're created what they call the railgun. Are you familiar with the railgun, Phil?
I have to confess. Nope.
Oh, okay. The railgun is the new way that projectiles will be shot. And hang on. And it uses electromagnetic force. And it sends the projectile from 0 to Mach 6 in under a second. It's literally boom. And when they demonstrate the railgun, the power of the railgun, they send it through sheet after sheet of steel, and it goes through about 8 and from miles away, right? It can fire 200 miles. It'll be on boats soon and everything like that, ships. And that look is worse than the railgun. Telling you now. Kimmy Lashmar, do you want to read this out?
Say, ladies and gentlemen, we've got good news. We've got the Grinch listening to Men's Radio Station today. By the way, if you have just tuned in, you are listening to Men's Radio Station with Ross Kane and me, Phil Dave.
This was the home service. I didn't know.
This is Hertfordshire and London, respectively, calling. I say
radio. I got a question for you, because you're a big radio nut. On old radios, right? Kimmy, we'll come to you in a sec. On old radios, when you had to dial, you had the names of everywhere, which I always thought was very romantic. I loved that. I loved the fact you'd switch on, like at school. We switch on this. We were allowed one radio program a week at boarding school. And do you know what it was? It was Pick of the Pops with Alan Freeman.
Oh, thank goodness for that. I thought you were going to say it was a shipping forecast.
No, it was Pick of the Pops. We were allowed to listen to that in the boarding house on a Sunday, never dreaming as a 9 and 10-year-old that I would share studios with Alan Freeman as I grew up. I mean, what are the chances? But you had a huge, not half pop, because all right, out of Unit 1 into Unit 2. How about a little bit of Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick and you know who, all right? So
I don't know, because you know full well I can't say that.
I can't even say it. It's the one, that's why I do it, because you can't say it. It's a huge radio. Big valve.
Dave
D. No, stop. Let's do it bit by bit. Let's break it down. Dave D. Beaky. No, now you got me.
Says you're right. Laughing at me.
Dave D. Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch.
Dave
D. Dozy.
Dave B. What? Dave D.
Stop it.
I can't do it. It's not my
Dave D.
Dave
God
D.
Almighty. Dave D.
Yes.
Dozy.
Hello.
Beaky.
Mick.
And Titch. There you go. I just got to string it together.
Dave Dozy D. What?
Dave's dick is Titch. Leave it at that. We're never going to get any further than this.
Right, anyway.
I want to read Kimmy Lashmar's fabulous news.
Says great news. Great news. I tell you,
that was from Futurama. Good news, everybody. All right, go on.
Didn't know that young Mr. Grace was in the Futurama.
Same thing. He's a very old. He's got bottle glass like. Good news, everybody. It's hilarious.
Kimmy Lashmore.
Terrible news.
Kimmy Lashmore says the garden centres not having Santa's Grotto this year.
Thank God for that. Yay.
Also says this will ease stress levels and financial burdens that Kiddywinks won't hastily open a plastic toy at the end of November, then saying, what do I get next?
Yep.
Maybe might lead to a future generation not expecting things handed on a plate and appreciate the best things in life. Who knows? It might lead to a generation who prefer not to party to save their families from a ventilator. Maybe a topic for a later time, but great news all the same. Wow.
I got to say, Kimmy, I'm not sure I want to devote a whole thing to garden centres.
I think the BBC have already done that.
On your next question, please. Phil Dave, Hertfordshire Garden Society. I've
got a
sandy soil next to my sandy wall. East facing, my clematis is drooping. What can I do?
It appears to have the consistency of nappy rash.
That's it. Have you brought some of your clematis with us? I have. Would you like to bring it up? Pan, what do you think? Bob flowered you. Well, I think you're a crap gardener, basically. That's what I think you are. You're a crap gardener.
Oh, now I've made
I absolutely love gardeners' questions. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. I just find it relaxing. If I'm in the car and it's on, I'll listen. I haven't a clue what they're talking about.
Partially soothing. I said there's something partially soothing about it.
It's very, very soothing. Like the shipping forecast. When do I go on a boat? And the last boat I went on was the little ferry that goes across to Canary Wharf. Honestly, I felt like Thor Heyerdahl on that thing. It's hilarious.
Oh, ferry across the Thames.
Yeah.
This land, it's the place I love.
Oh, hang on, Chrissy Holt. Oh, we're getting a little insight into their marital bliss here. He, being presumably husband Mike, he always insults me, makes fun of me. He thinks he's funny, but not in my book. Oh, that rings a bell.
Hang on.
That rings a bell. Here's a phrase. How many people know this phrase? You think you're so funny, don't you? Go on.
But then she ends it, which contradicts her statement with lol.
As in laugh out loud. Does that mean laugh out loud? Or I'm falling around on the floor.
He always insults me and makes fun of me. He thinks he's funny, but not in my book. Lol.
Yeah.
So you've just made yourself laugh at that.
Yeah, you see, you have. And you've been together 300 years. So come on, you've been together forever and you're living in the middle of nowhere in Spain. You, Mike, and a tractor. There were 3 of us in the marriage. One of them was a Massey Ferguson. Andrea Lucas is suffering. My poor olive tree is being blasted. Yeah, it's blowing like crazy out there, isn't it? It's like there's all trees all around me and stuff. And it's whoosh. I didn't need to do that because you probably are grown up enough to know what a tree looks like when it's blowing. Don't need visual stimulation for that. Proper gusts. Yeah, we've got 3 gusts coming on later.
Though, if you did genuinely sort of want to talk about gales and wind, as it were, I think that there is very little need for visual stimulation for that, not least of all actually just in radio generally, because I'm a great believer. I've never actually understood sort of why it is right here, right now, why we even bother with the camera, because we're supposed to be men's radio. Yeah, okay. And we're on screen at the moment.
Yeah, that's because that's how people like to digest
in
radio.
Fact,
it's the business model that I always wanted to have, and thanks to you and your technical genius, that's what we got.
In fact, I'm actually going. There you go. I'm going to protest.
Oh, that is way bloody better. Oh, that is so much better.
I'm going to be radio only. Okay.
Why?
Sorry, because this is what I got into.
You got an itch or something. You got an itch. You're going to scratch your bottom, and you don't want anyone to see. That's what it is.
Dare you?
That's what it is. Chrissy Holt, back to her marital bliss. It's true, though. He does annoy me at times. They've been together 36 years. Jeez, he must have annoyed you like a hell of a lot. I mean, when I read that someone's been together 36 years, I always say, well, the train robber's only got 15. I'm sorry about your olive tree. Where have you gone? I don't like not being able to see you because I don't trust you. He's gone somewhere. But he's gone to make a sandwich.
Unbelievable. Right. Phil, didn't you say there was something missing behind you? Behind me?
No. It was the caption.
I mean, it was underneath. It was, look at the captions along
the little rolling.
Yeah, it's the ticker.
It's the ticker tape. Right, there we go. Right. So yesterday.
411.
What are you doing? You're doing a dance, like a parrot.
I'm doing a telephone number.
Oh.
Yeah.
You can dial in. You get straight to Phil. I can only apologise. 0203 290 4411. That's for our guest. Come on. Now, London update. Stop the sound of London's traffic. Anybody old enough to remember that? I actually was before my time, even me. But anybody, pop quiz, anybody know what that show was called? Stop the sound of London's traffic. Come on, you television
Radio
files.
Cornwall.
What's that?
Maybe it was Radio Cornwall.
No. Radio Cornwall, Jesus. No. Awesome. It was a TV show. It was the first in the UK of its kind.
Was it an edition of Badger Watch?
Damn. I didn't know how you knew that. Yeah. It was Badger Watch. No.
You were saying something before, actually, about radio. You're saying if I was such a radio head, as it were, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. We got diverted by our own stupidity. In town tonight, Martin Bell. Bravo. Absolutely right. Martin Bell from Mallorca. Yes, in town to stop the roar of London's traffic. In town tonight, which was before my time. It was one of the very first sort of chat shows where in town tonight, the very glamorous actress Dorothy Lamour speaks to us. Hello, Miss Lamour. Hello. How are you? I'm all right, thank you. It was all of that. It was incredibly formal. Wow. It was so formal. But, that was how life was then. Anyway, that's still better than that. What's his name? Guy I loathe. What's his name? He has his hand bandaged. Oh, come on.
Keith Lemon.
Anything's better than Keith Lemon. Going to the dentist is better than Keith Lemon. Anywho.
Speaking of which, I've managed to rearrange a dental appointment, thank goodness.
How do they do that? They get a 6-foot pole and then start scraping your teeth with the scrapey thing at the end of the 6-foot pole.
No. Oh, I've got a new toy. Hang on a sec. I've got to show you. Hang on.
Is it a tooth thing? What is
it?
Wait. Oh, God. Excitement knows no bounds. Now he's gone. But he's gone to the car. He's going to drive his car into the house to show us his new convertible car. What have we got? Keith Lemon. Thank you, Eve Phantom. I'm going to say crazy gal, crazy name, but there isn't a sound effect, so I'll just go crazy name, crazy gal. There we go. That'll do. Andrea Lucas, way before your time. It was way before all of our time. How Martin Bell can remember that? Martin, you must be a real...
How good? I got a face shield. I've got to tell you, I now know how...
When does the oxyacetylene cutter arrive?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie. It is a bit daunting in here.
Daunting? Jesus Christ, it must be like being stuck in a lift.
No, you know what it's a bit like? Did you ever watch Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? You know that bit with Augustus Gloop where he gets stuck in the pipe and he's going...
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
I feel like there's a whoosh of chocolate from coming within. And then
yeah, right.
Yeah.
We need a couple of Oompa Loompas.
Hey, look, I'll tell you what.
What is it claustrophobic? It looks bloody claustrophobic. It looks really claustrophobic to me.
It's a bit snug in here. And what's particularly peculiar as well is that, and just in case, by the way, anyone is actually listening to this on radio rather than watching it, I have one of those face shields on. But just in case.
Describe it for radio. Go on, Mr. Radiophile.
Well, there's not really very much to describe. I've got a
There's loads to describe.
I've got a headband on, and attached to that headband is a large sort of piece of film that goes down over my eyes.
Of Arabia, it was.
No, I don't think Lawrence.
No, wrong film. Sorry, wrong film. Go on. And look, this thing's bloody huge. So it goes from his headband, so he looks like a sort of member of ABBA, circa 1980. And this thing goes way below his chin, so it goes about 4 inches below his chin. He would survive a thermonuclear blast wearing that thing.
I got to tell you, it's a bit of a bugger when you want to go scratch your nose.
Scratch your nose. Imagine if you're an astronaut. Oh. Whoa! Imagine, or you're a fighter pilot, and you got to scratch. You drive me mad. If you're wearing a full spacesuit, like if you go into the U-2 spy plane, the Lockheed spy plane, the U-2, you got an itchy nose, you're stuffed. Or if you were flying the Blackbird SR-71, can't do it. So this is going to replace your mask, or what's the deal with this?
No, I think I probably will have to
take it off now because it sounds like you're in the toilet.
Hang on. Ow. Okay.
Right. Okay.
There we go.
Right. Okay.
Crumbs.
Andrew Lucas. Yes, he was. Yes, he was indeed. Roald Dahl. Any bloke called Roald, and it can't be asked to put an N in his and call himself Ronald. What's all that about? I've always never got that. I could be Ussel because I couldn't be bothered to put the R in. That was just ridiculous. So Roald, I always call him Ronald. Good writer, but it wasn't my cup of tea. I never read any of his stories to any of my kids, and I was never read any of the stories when I was a kid on parchment. My mum and dad watched it in town tonight. Now my cousin Francine Warner says Craig and the family all have these mask things. Yeah.
There you go. I'm putting it on you so you feel like you've got some sort of protection going on. There you go.
Luke, I am your father.
Can you see? Actually, hang on a second. Can you see there's a bit of a reflection on my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that what it's like wearing it? You got a reflection all the time.
Jeez, that's why I particularly like. No, that's why I'm particularly liking it, because I'm always looking at myself.
Why don't you just have the whole inside of it mirrored, and then you could walk around and looking at yourself, going, "God, I am fabulous. I'm Phil Dave. I'm the greatest."
No, I did think of that, and then I thought it might be a bad idea on reflection.
Not all it's cracked up to be. Ed Grossman. I always fancied Sophie Dahl. Yeah, she was hot. Still is. Isn't she married? Am I going mad? To Jamie Cullum? She's about 6 foot tall. Jamie Cullum is the size of somebody from Middle Earth.
Yeah, I don't know if she's married to him, but I know she's certainly with him.
Yeah, they've been together for years. What have we got? So Craig and all the family have this, says my cousin Francine Warner. Fran, where are my glasses? There we go. That's her husband, Michael. I've only known him since he was 16. Yeah, they look kind of weird, but I get the point of them. They're certainly protective. But I think come winter. Did you get it? Where'd you buy it, by the way? Tell everybody. What? Costco.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just rewind this for a second. Hang on, let's just rewind this for a second. You went to Costco and you didn't phone me and say, Russ, what can I get you in Costco? Because I know you'd have to travel miles now to go and buy anything.
See, the problem is
not even a call, not a text, not a call, nothing.
No, you see, the problem is...
Just remember this, Phil Dave. I made you and I can break you.
What on earth makes you think you haven't already? When I did go to the When I went to Costco, I went there in mind of getting just
a television set and 6 cans of Coke. That's what everyone does. You go in. I'm going in to get some bananas and some bread. You come out with a TV set of 72-inch wide. What the hell does that happen?
Oh, Martin Bell says apparently they married each other in 2010. Thank you.
Yeah.
I went in there to go get a new chair, a new office chair, because the one that I'm sitting on at the moment, I've realized that as I'm sitting more and more in front of this desk, this chair is incredibly uncomfortable.
I sit on a dining room chair. My desk chair for convenience, and it folds underneath. I got rid of my office chairs. I had all those, sort of executive, come in, Mr. Bond, all of those. They've all gone. I don't know where the hell they are. Storage or something. So I sit in a very small chair. And I bought, because I saw it advertised, one of those cushions which says you can sit on an egg and it won't crack. It's making sod all difference. Really, no difference. I was so excited when this thing arrived. I thought this was going to be great, and change my posture and everything. Nah. No, not really. So Costco, how much was it? Is it expensive, that piece of kit, or what? Was it?
Oh no, it was terrific. 4 of those for £10. Terrific.
4?
4 for 10.
Wow, that's a bargain. That is a bargain.
I know, right? I was very happy with that.
Andrew Lucas has got one with space to wear glasses underneath.
Well, that's good.
Does it fog up? Not being rude. I mean it. Does it fog up when you wear it?
No, not really. Oh, do you mean Andy's?
No, yours. I don't know.
No. Oh, right. No, by the way, when you mentioned in town tonight, I thought you meant this. I thought you meant London tonight. Do you remember this? Oh, happy days.
I have no idea what that is. I have no idea what the hell that is. What is that? London tonight. That is such an arse-achingly pretentious theme tune, isn't it? Like if you were doing a pastiche of a show, you'd play that. It's so pretentious.
That was the ITV regional program for news for London. It was called London Tonight, and it was where we pretty much very first saw Alistair Stewart.
Oh, we like him.
Oh, we do indeed.
Love Alistair Stewart.
But anyway, he, along with several other well-known faces, was on London Tonight, which was their original.
Mary Nightingale. I used to have a thing about Mary Nightingale. I think I met her once. A very attractive woman. Hello. And did she start on that? Probably not. She was probably about 3.
Don't know where Mary Nightingale.
Andrew Lucas, talking about the mask, doesn't fog up. Just sent you both pictures on Messenger.
Oh.
Please God, just of the mask, Andrea. I don't want any of those pictures.
Oh, look at that.
I said it. What?
Yeah, very good.
I'm not looking. Paul Claridge, is he up a ladder? Is he down a ladder? We never know with Paul. He's always listening to the show. He's 15 feet up a ladder. God knows why. Good morning on this windy day. Hey, Russ, stop bullying Phil.
Correct.
He's not your personal shopper. He doesn't have a cardo tattooed on his head. He has Panzers tattooed on the back of his neck, and Grzinski's up his left arm. It's a fact. It does. It's a fact. Can't get over him.
And I shan't tell you where I've got Waitrose and Partners tattooed. That got him. Hey,
right. Phil is my personal shopper, as it so happens. That's where you're wrong, Paul. That's one of his duties. He is my personal shopper.
Can't you tell from the immense style that Russ possesses?
Well, today.
Yes, today's T-shirt.
That's what I do. I play drums, and I know things.
Well, there you
go.
This.
I thought I'm getting that. I sent a certain someone. I sent off an American. It arrived finally weeks later yesterday, and it's a picture of a cockapoo, and the caption just says, "Yes, I can hear you. I'm just not listening." I thought that was just great. Just a cockapoo.
I suppose the caption would have been something like either or.
What?
Now,
that's not nice.
Oh no!
I like cockapoos. I like cockapoos. I think they're like gorgeous little dogs.
I know you've got one. Well, sort of.
No, well, I can't. Yeah, gorgeous little dog.
I agree.
So sweet. It's a sweet little thing. It's not that little actually, and they're very, very cuddly. They're like a stress ball. You know, you have a stress ball. You can just kind of stroke it, and it all feels like a sort of like soft little rug. It feels like yes. I was thinking of you yesterday because I walked in, masked and glasses and everything, into the UGG shop. And I thought, I cannot pass the UGG shop without you, because it's like going to Mecca for you. It's like your holy pilgrimage. Phil goes to near London. He has to go to the UGG shop for some reason or other.
No, hang on just a cotton-picking second here. In my defense, I think I've been there twice in 10 years.
Oh, okay.
Just so happens once was with you.
Sorry, why are you now looking like the late Robin Gibb? What do you got the glasses on for? Is it sunny in your room?
Nobody gets too much love.
I didn't blame them for putting their fingers in their ears. I couldn't bear the Bee Gees. I always put my fingers in the ears as soon as the Bee Gees come on.
Oh, poor Bee Gees.
I couldn't bear them.
I like the Bee Gees.
Nah, wasn't my cup of tea.
No one could understand up until then why I kept wearing skinny jeans. It's because you hit the high notes.
Why are you wearing mirrored sunglasses?
Because I look so much better.
No, you look pretentious. You look as pretentious. It's like Howard Stern used to wear those round sun. I was always thinking, why is he's in a studio in New York? What's he wearing sunglasses for? It's just kind of stupid. There was a great saying. I don't know who it was. I think it was brilliant comedian who died, American, George Carlin. George Carlin said, and forgive my language, everybody. He said only two types of people wear sunglasses indoors.
Steady.
Blind. Do you know what the quote is?
I got a rough idea, so watch it.
What do you mean watch it? What do you mean watch it? You're the what are you? The governor of language suddenly?
Not the governor of language, but the maintainer of.
I will paraphrase it. George Carlin said only two types of people wear dark glasses indoors: blind people and a-holes.
There we go.
You can't argue with them, really. You can't argue. It's true. It's ridiculous. It's always like that. I always think, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? I worked with somebody well known in Panto, and they'd walk through, and they were middle aged by this point. They had a bit of a little bit of a tum-tum going on and everything, and they wear tight black leather trousers. Never a good look unless you're about 19 and skinny as hell. Tight white t-shirt, never a good look if you got a tum-tum, and dark glasses. And I think, why are you walking to come and say hello to me or whatever in the corridor of the dressing rooms at night wearing dark glasses? It's ludicrous.
Preserving my eyesight, darling.
It was just rude. I'm not going to say who it was, but I think Paul knows it. Paul Claridge knows who it is. It's a friend of Paul's as well. Paul knows who it is. There we go. Right. So yesterday, I took the plunge and I took a certain someone out to lunch who had not been to a restaurant. This was the second restaurant visit since January.
Wow.
Since January. So went to where I met you and Alex Lichtenfeld last week. Prearranged it because I knew that yesterday was going to be a nice day of weather. And the previous day I had worked, I think, 14 hours straight. I was absolutely knacked, so I thought I'm taking today off. And not today, obviously, got a lot to do today, yesterday off. And the weather was just glorious, and it was lovely. And all of that was a terrific experience. It was very, very nice. And following in the Phil Day footsteps, took the own cutlery. There you go. Took it off. And oh no, it isn't. Oh yeah. Oh yes, it is actually. It's behind you. What? Your career.
A cliche panto line. There you go.
Yeah, but it's not a panto unless you do stick. You got to stick all that stuff in. It's great. Oh yes, you do. Right. So no pantos this year. Anywho, London. I tell you what was really sad. And if you don't live in London, you might be thinking, well, I don't care. But it just felt like I've said it before. It just feels like the guts have been ripped out of the city. Honestly does. You know, the West End was when you drive down Regent. I was driving down Regent Street. Thanks, Sadiq Khan, by the way, 15 quid value. It's disgraceful. The number of huge shops which are just bare and gone. It's a really very, very sobering and frightening. And a lot of people, I know you're going to get into they were over trading. They should have gone years ago. They're using COVID as an excuse. Put all that just to one side, because we can argue about that forever and debate it. The fact that they're gone and there's just these holes, there's just these gaps, just kind of effectively boarded up with some horrible little poster in the window. And some of them are like double fronted, triple fronted, huge. It felt very, very sad. That's all I can say. It felt, I know the phrase, I know the word, I've just popped into my head, melancholic. It felt very melancholic looking at all these closed little cafes and the restaurants, and man, it's just, and I think this is just the start. I mean, I've said that for some time. Do you remember where Tower Records were, Phil, at Piccadilly?
Yes, because that's where Records was, and Zavi Records as well were.
I don't know, but those of you who know London, there was on the corner of Piccadilly a huge thing, which became other things after Tower Records went, whenever it went, I can't remember, some time ago. And that is a long frontage. It's about 3 or 4 shops worth, big, like 2 double fronted, all gone, nothing, just nothing there, nothing at all. Just felt very sad.
To say that it won't come back again, It might take a while, but there is nothing to say that
it will.
Nonsense is over, but it could be a rebirth.
I guess. I mean, last time I went to LA, they just had some huge fires, and unless you see them, you just, I know you see them on the news, and you think, Jesus. But when you're driving along and you see all the blackened hillsides, and in the space of time that I was there for a couple of weeks, and then it rained. And the moment it rained, as Phil says, this rebirth is instant, and it went from the time I was there to just being a blackened wreck, and suddenly a vibrant green. It was stunning. It just came, boom, it came back.
Oh my goodness, that reminds me.
It will come back, Phil. But what won't come back will be offices. And they're building. And I turned in the car and I said, what are they building for? They're not building homes. It's not homes. Or even Watson. They're not. And you think, what are you building for? Because the offices, people are not going to be coming back to that. They're not. That ship has left port. Working will be very, very different from now on. I think it was always teetering. And the other thing is I had to drive then through the city of London. Now, Phil, as you know, always looks like a dandy. He's always beautifully dressed. Always.
I think so.
This is as dressed as I get, right? And because that's it. And I realized there I was going through the actual city of London, the financial section. No one was wearing a suit. Not one suit. Now, you see people sitting outside in various kind of blocks where people were. No one. That's all gone. I honestly think it's gone. I think the revolution. This was the tipping point. This was a seminal moment, and I think all of that's gone now. Really. How do you feel about that, Phil?
Well, I tell you what. There was one thing that I was thinking of when you were saying about the rebirth just before. Because, as some of you know, potentially, if you were watching the show last week, you'd know that I wasn't here last Friday because I was away. I was in Wales. And when I was in Wales, there was one part we drove through, the friend I was traveling with, we drove through this small little Welsh village, and we noticed something was very, very odd. Couldn't quite put up.
Was it Matt Lucas? Was he only gay in the village?
No. Okay. But that's another funny story as well, but I won't go into that. But what happened is that there was this very strange, well, I think the only way I can describe it is looked like a tire mark. Very, very strange tire mark running all the way horizontally around a load of buildings in this small village. And we couldn't quite work out why on earth there would be a tire mark running across. I want you, if you picture it, if anyone ever watches Emmerdale, I'm sorry if you don't, but just imagine that kind of little village set up. Okay. You've got a collection of small stone buildings, but there was this strange tire mark running all the way along horizontally across a building. I reckon maybe just above sort of like the average. So let's say the average person's about 6 foot, probably about shoulder height. It was running.
Okay.
And it suddenly dawned on me as I was sitting at traffic lights what that was. That wasn't
a clue. I actually can't guess.
But that wasn't a tire mark. It was a flood line. So I think that village had been flooded in recent months.
Ooh.
All cleared now, but been flooded. And the reason what gave it away was that where this so-called tire mark, but flood line was, all of those buildings were empty and they were being repainted and redecorated. But I couldn't quite work. I didn't really sort of think along the lines of, all of these buildings are being redecorated at the same time. I just was mesmerized by this tire mark. And it was a flood mark. There's no doubt in my mind it was. But what was interesting is that some of the buildings had just been refurbished, had just been finished being repainted and stuff like that and ready to get up and running again. And others were still in the process of it. But I thought to myself, that's amazing. Because however horrendous it must have been at the time, and I'm so sure it must have been ghastly for anyone who lived through it,
Can you imagine?
just goes to show what a brilliant British attitude. Pick yourself up and dust off and start over.
Absolutely.
And I think the same will happen. I think the same will happen with...
Don't forget, because I'm a lot older than you, when I used to go as a little boy with my dad to work, he was a timber importer. There was a wharf down in the East End. The East End, as you know, got pummeled in the last war by the Germans. And they still had all the bomb sites. So driving to work as a little boy, I just get so excited going to the timber yard. I'm with my dad. You know, when you're a kid, it's a deal to go with your dad to work. Excuse me. And we'd passed so many, going through the East End, so many bomb sites. And then the next thing, Phil, which you wouldn't know, was they had, you'd call it a porter cabin now, but it was prefabs, prefabricated houses, which they put people up in. It was meant to be temporary, but it turned out to be pretty long term until they got rid of that and they built the ghastly high rises, and that killed society. So we can talk about that for 3 hours. That's another issue. So yeah, I do get the whole rebirth. I get the whole. I mean, London was on its knees, and they rebuilt it. Now, here's an interesting point. Shoshana Yosef, a regular listener, I'm investing in a flat which is a refurbished office block. And I've got a question for Mr. Phil, Dave, and for everybody else, because there must be some of you watching who are in property and stuff like that. The offices are going to be empty. There's no ifs or buts. This is guaranteed they're going to be empty. And a lot of people say, great. Let's just take, as an example, Canary Wharf. Those offices, people won't be coming back. Not on the scale they did, right? So people say, I know, we'll make them into homes. Who the hell's going to be able to afford that?
Well,
take a bank. Just for example, say Barclays. I'm not saying it's going to be Barclays, but say Barclays or somebody like that, and they're huge headquarters, and they don't need all those floors. Who's going to be able to afford to buy those apartments?
Well, you say that, but I would suggest the home developers, the Barretts, the Crest Nicholsons of this world.
No, I'm not talking about the multiples. I'm not talking about like Chinese coming in and the Russians coming in and slapping them all up. I get that. I'm talking about Londoners or people trying to get a foot on the ladder. Who's going to be able to afford it? I know the developers can do it, but they're going to hold on to them for ages.
No, but hang on a second. My theory is that this could be one of the best things to happen to the property market, because if there's a sudden oversaturation of new apartments that are readily available, then potentially the price could go down.
And the other side of that, Mr. Phil, is that a lot of people might find themselves in negative equity, which, believe me, having been there once myself, you don't want. And especially if a lot of people, the new model will be a lot of people, especially older people, will be doing equity release. And if everything plummets, their equity release, that causes huge ramifications. It's huge.
Now, let's change the direction of this ship ever so slightly, because it's time for our first guest.
Who were, Mrs.?
He's waiting very patiently in the digital green room, and I can see from the look on his face that he's thinking, hang on a second, have I suddenly tuned into Homes Under the Hammer?
doing here?
Program.
What am I doing? He's going, Jesus, I could have been out on my bicycle, or
I could have taken
having a coffee.
Well, you couldn't. It's a Friday, but even so, you know what I mean. But this is obviously a subject that I'm fairly sure will mean quite a lot to Russ and I, because obviously it involves the voice. And for those who didn't gather, obviously the voice is quite an important tool when you work in radio. No kidding. And
helps.
Thought of not being able to communicate for me is a scary one. There are very few things in this world that I live in fear of, but I have often wondered what it would be like if I couldn't speak with ease, not talk at all, because that's not what we're talking about. We're actually talking about, in particular, stammering. And our first guest has, I don't want to use the word suffering because I hate that word. I think it's terrible. Has lived with, has worked.
Endured, maybe.
The word
endured, maybe. Been afflicted by.
Well, I think we're going to find.
Affected by.
Let's find out what the exact word is.
Why don't you let them ask? Yeah.
Exactly, because Michael Derrig Adams joins us now. I'm very, very pleased to say he makes his way out of the digital green room. Michael, a very good afternoon to you. Oh dear! Now, Michael, we can't hear you, I'm afraid, so we have to do something about that. We'll have to find out.
I think we will.
So I'll let you.
Maybe the films he makes are silent films. Maybe Michael is the Marcel Marceau of guests. We have to guess.
Guessing that, Michael, you can hear us, which is great.
Can you hear us? Can you give us a thumbs up if you can hear us, Michael? Oh, so Michael can hear us, but
we can't.
Right, Phil, this is your department because all I got here is a light and a coffee flask.
Well, we'll come back to Michael in a moment. We'll find out why he can't.
It can't be too tricky.
I'm sure it's absolutely fine. It's usually something in the settings of the software that we use is the reason why. But I'm sure that in just a moment's time we'll be able to hear. So what we'll do then
is fan off.
Russ,
keep talking. I got to switch this fan off. It's driving me. Can you talk for 20 seconds?
If you'll let me, yes. Anyway, now
I hate you.
Yeah, I know. As I was saying, we're talking about stammering. Now, what I want to know from you is whether or not there's been anything in your life that has meant that you have found it difficult to communicate with others. We want to broaden this out a little bit. Certainly, the most we're interested in is stammering, because obviously that is what our guest is talking about. But in particular, have you ever had a problem with communication? It could be of any form, really. Is there an issue you have? Maybe it's through confidence. Maybe it is through a language barrier. It could be anything, whatever it might be. Have you ever had a problem communicating with others? If so, we really want to hear from you. So do get in touch. 0203 290 4411. That's 0203 290 4411. You can comment along on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. We're live on all of those platforms. And of course, we're live on mensradiostation.com. Right, let's see now whether or not, Michael, can you hear us and can we hear you?
So I can hear you, but I can't hear.
Excellent. Excellent. We can hear you.
So you can hear me now, because I think it's something I done something wrong. So, but it's
don't you worry about it.
You can hear me now. So,
Michael, we can hear you now. So you've done something right, sir. Don't you worry about it. It's terrific to have you. Welcome along to Men's Radio Station. Now, look, earlier on, just when I was introducing you the first time around, I did say that I never know what the correct terminology is when it comes to someone who lives with a stammer. Do you see it as suffering? Do you see it as working your way through, tolerating? How do you describe living with a stammer?
So I think it's like working through a stammer, because people with stammers think that it's the end of the world. And my job is to say you should be proud to have one, because it can open doors for you.
Well, certainly. And, and certainly for your good self, it would appear as though that you've received some of the best therapy out there by the sound of it, because tell us a little bit about how you overcame your stammer, or worked with the stammer, because it was through the now famous Michael Palin Center. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, so I went there for a 2-week intensive course, and they taught you certain like breathing techniques, because with a stammer you get taught certain breathing techniques. And I had speech therapy for 22 years, and I felt when I went to the Michael Derrig Centre, they taught us how to be proud to have a stammer, because other speech therapists say you can grow out of a stammer, you can grow out of a stammer, but they don't teach you to be proud to have one.
Can I ask you what might sound like a really dumb question, but I think it's really important for someone to know this. What is it like to have a stammer? In other words, is it a case of that you think of what you want to say, you go to say it, and then the words don't come out? Or is it a confidence thing? What stops you or prevents you from maybe speaking with some fluidity that others maybe take for granted?
So with a stammer, you have your good days and bad days. So the thing I would say to a person who don't have a stammer is when you're doing a presentation, you feel like that nervousness, and you do, and it's one of them things. Is with a stammer, it's all about confidence. So I think people just don't get what it's like to have one.
Michael, can I just say, on behalf of Phil and myself and everyone at Men's Radio, thank you so much for coming on, because it's not just brave, but you're shining a light on a subject that often gets overlooked. And we really appreciate it very, very much. Thank you. It means a lot. You've come here and you want to share your story, etc. When I was at school, and I wonder if you had to do these exercises, when I was at boarding school, one of my best friends had, without doubt, the worst stammer I'd ever heard. It was shocking. And I want to ask you a couple of things. So he would have to do exercises like he'd have to phone me. We were allowed to use the house phone, and deliberately have a conversation. And he could get stuck on a word, and I swear it could be 10-15 seconds of getting stuck on that word. Is it the wrong thing to do to I'm trying to put this politely, to suggest to the person with the stammer that what the word might be? So if he was caught on the word and you go, motor car, is that the wrong thing to do?
So with me, with like living with a stammer, I do think that makes us feel like we don't know what the word is. No, you can give someone advice about what they can say, or like telling them how to breathe. No, but it's just one of them things. No, it gets really annoys us when someone say, if you wanted a coffee, and then they said to you, oh yeah, you want a cappuccino? No. And it just gets very frustrating, and you notice more, and they stammer, they keep stammering because they think in their heads the person's judging me. So
I get that.
What's the worst humanity that you've seen? In other words, sort of how has this impacted on your daily life when you are, for example, ordering a coffee? I very much hope that this is not the case, but do you come up against people who are that ignorant that they will, dare I even suggest, mock you?
I have came across some people like that, but if you open and tell them, oh yeah, I've got a stammer, let me talk. Some people are really kind and let you talk, but like nowadays, I don't really let that phase me. I just rather wait there, get my words out, and I would rather than wait for like a couple seconds, and I would, and yeah, it's just that. So,
is this something you were born with, or do you think you developed?
Did this stem from when you fell out of you were in a push chair, and fell out? I was reading. You've got and you're only 22, aren't you? So you've accomplished a hell of a lot. And please don't think that's patronizing, because my kids are just 23. And you know, you've really accomplished a lot, and you should be very, very proud of that. So
thank you.
In the information that Phil and I were sent by our producer, you fell out of a pushchair as a baby.
As a baby walker, wasn't it?
A baby walker. Are they attributing some of the problems that you've then encountered down to that?
It could be, because with a stammer, if you read up about it, it can be caused by like a trauma thing. So it could be, we don't know, but it runs through my family. So it might be like a generic thing, because my dad had a stammer as well, but now you wouldn't tell he had one. So it might be like a generic thing, but no one really knows how a stammer comes about.
That's amazing. I had absolutely no idea that stammering could potentially be hereditary. That's incredible.
I've never heard that before. How fascinating is that? Now, one of the things that I thought your information was very moving when I read it. Very moving indeed. Because I was half expecting, well, I've got a stammer, you know, blah, blah, blah. But it's much, much more than that. It's you felt a sense of isolation, which if you don't have a stammer, of course, it wouldn't cross your mind. That's why it's so important to have guests like you on Men's Radio. It's important to shed light on areas that we could be kinder about and think more about, which is why we were asking you about what is the correct way, because Phil and I didn't know, to try and help. So this isolation, how have you dealt with it?
So I think with me though, is like talking to my friends about how I feel about my stammer. And like, I could give you a example. I was in my primary school, and they used to ask us to say like full actual name. So they would say, we would have to say, good morning, my name's Michael Derrig Adams. And some days I could say it really well, and the other days I just would stand in there and the whole room was some silence. And I felt very, very alone then. And I could see the
so
kids
rough, Michael.
laugh and that and too. And it's just one of the things that sticks in my mind. So that's why when I made my stammer as me, it was my first time I ever shared a story about my stammer.
Could I persuade you to tell the fish and chips story? Because I thought that was so... I read it. I was so moved by it, Michael. I'll be honest with you, because it's the sort of thing, you know, it doesn't cross your mind if you're not afflicted by this. So if I could, you know, ask you to.
Yeah, so the story about the fish and chips story is, so I was about 10, and my sisters made me order some like cod and chips. So I went to the fish and chip shop. My heart was pounding because I think I have to say these words, and like they will judge me because I weren't confident about my stammer then. And then I couldn't say anything because I got so like I couldn't get my words out. And then when I got back, I didn't get any food, and my sisters was angry at me because they didn't know about a stammer then, and I felt really upset. But that does stick in my mind. So each time I try and order something, like Eve now, I get, oh no. So
that is I don't know what that's really, it's just the image of you or of anybody being 10 years old, you know, you're such a little kid, and that's isn't it interesting, Michael, how something so simple can be so traumatic and stay with you. You know, if you break it down, you're a kid, you go into a fish and chip shop, there's nothing spooky or special about it, and something like that, can be so life-changing, and I think that's a wonderful encapsulation of what you've gone through. I think it's very brave. I really do. And thank you again for coming on. It's a very big deal for us.
There was something that you said earlier on about one of the things that the Michael Palin Center teaches you. You were saying that it was that they teach you to be proud of having a stammer.
Yep.
Is that implying that the default setting, for want of a better terminology, is that ordinarily people with stammers are ashamed? Did you ever feel ashamed of having a stammer?
Yes. So before I went to the senator, I felt really, I didn't feel ashamed, but I felt like I was the only person in the world who had one, because back then it weren't well known about a stammer. And like when I went to the center, we was put in groups, and each story sounded so similar to mine, and they like taught me to be like proud to have one. And that's because I had speech therapy all my life, and that's the only time I felt okay, let's be proud to have a stammer.
Listening to you, honestly, I'm starting to feel
very emotional. I don't know why. We've conducted hundreds of conversations like this. I'm finding this really very, very emotional. It's
but I'm
what hits you, isn't it?
You know what I'm feeling?
Yeah,
it's just
don't cry on air. No, so.
No, I don't think I will. I think that'll be the day.
How
did you first get in touch with the Michael Palin Center? I'd never heard of it. I've obviously heard of Michael Palin when I hear it.
So I went to a school called Sunny Downs School. It's a school for like people with dyslexia, with speech problems. And then when I was in year 10, year 11, I think, they put me in touch with the center. And it's changed my life, because I used to have speech therapy in the past, and somehow they got me in contact with the actual center, because it's very hard to get into that center because it's such a specialist center.
This sounds a really stupid question. I should know the answer, but I'm afraid I don't. Did Michael Palin have a stammer himself initially?
So Michael Palin opened that center because his dad had a stammer, and that's why Michael Palin was inspired to open the center, because he felt it would keep his memory of his dad alive, and if his dad had that help, it wouldn't have been as bad for his dad, because he watched his dad go into parties or that and trying to talk to people, and he could see the face of his dad feel ashamed because he had a stammer.
You know, it's interesting. I actually have heard of the Michael Palin Center for stammering, and the reason why I've heard of it is because, the very long story short, is that I hosted a little award ceremony probably coming up to about a few months ago, where it was actually just before lockdown. It was in February, and one of the recipients of one of these awards was a chap by the name of Travis Reed, and Travis used to be involved in the Michael Palin Center. So I don't know what his involvement was there, but I know that's what and then as soon as I'd heard about that, through researching the recipients, sadly, Travis received this award posthumously. He just didn't make it to see him win this award. But what happened is that when we were researching the different recipients, I looked into, obviously, Michael Palin Center, and before then had no idea it existed. But wow, what a place. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like the second when you actually walked through the door? What actually happened, and sort of what what they actually do, because I've got a rough idea, but I think it'd be important to get it across to the listener to know exactly what they do and how they do what they do.
Yeah, so the first day, they made every person sit in a room, and for a stammerer trying to make a conversation with someone is very hard. So everyone was sitting in like total silence, like looking around the room, thinking, "Do I say something?" And like even when you know someone else have a stammer, you feel like, should I make that jump to say hi? So I thought I would make a joke, and that did break the ice in the room. And then they made us go.
Was it?
Sorry,
Michael. Do you remember what the joke was, and is it clean enough to say on radio?
Yes, I can't really remember the joke, but thankfully everyone actually like burst out laughing. It weren't just like a silent joke. And then after that, they made us go around and just tell us the stories about our stammerers. And what I felt really comfortable, because everyone said the same thing, and it feels like I was talking to like a reflection of myself.
Now, one of our listeners who's listening from Mallorca, Martin Bell, says this, and I work with young clients with stammers using the tapping method. Are you familiar with that? I'm not. What is that?
I think I heard of it, no, but it would be wrong of me to say what I know it was, but I'm not too sure. I think it's like counting in or something. I'm not too sure.
Okay. All right, nor me. Anyway, he says much success. Check out tapping videos on YouTube. Okay, we can do that another time, Martin. We will do that. It's interesting. Wonder what that is. Right. You're a filmmaker. You're now 22.
Yep.
And you're a filmmaker. What? Talk us through that. What are you up to?
Yeah, so I'm currently doing a documentary on cancer, and I do my filming and that independently. So I don't make any profit from it. I just want to help them inspire people. So I'm currently doing a cancer one now.
Is there any way? I know Phil would agree with me here. If there's any way that men's radio and women's radio can help you, we would be not financially. We can't do that, but we'd be very happy to promote it once the film's finished and help you with it and put it on our, put links on it on our website, on our personal social media. I'd be more than happy to do that. What's the thrust of the film about cancer?
Yeah, so the idea is to shed the light on cancer and to make people aware of what people go through with cancer. So I have two interviewees who had prostate cancer and breast cancer. So it just to help like people know more about cancer.
Do you need, Michael? Do you need any more people to interview? Because I know we've got some wonderful listeners who have had their own battles with cancer come through the other side. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to talk to you, especially having watched you and listened to you this morning.
Yes, I would be up for it, no. But I think how my brain works is, if I write something down, I have to just follow that. No, but I would be open to talking to more people too. And last year, I also made a documentary on depression, because my friend sadly passed away from it.
Wow.
On depression?
Yeah.
That's very, very, that is obviously a huge subject for us on men's radio, especially on men's radio, also on women's, but much more on men's, because men are more prevalent for it to lead to taking their own lives. Okay, we'd be willing to link up with that, Michael. Definitely.
Thank you.
If that would no, thank you for doing it. It's a huge subject. Do you know somebody called Zoe Adams?
Zoe Adams, yes.
Because she's saying Michael is very hardworking and deserves to do well. I can see you're hardworking. Why do you feel you're 22? The point I'm mentioning your age is this: why do you feel motivated to make documentaries about cancer and about depression when most 22-year-olds are just going, when's Weatherspoons open? Slight exaggeration. You know what I'm talking about. What gave you that thrust to do that?
Michael, just before you answer that, I want you to rest assured that even I, at the age of 34, and Russ is still obsessed with mentioning my age every 2 seconds. Curious how he never mentions his age, but let's not.
Because I can't count that high, Phil. I can't count that high. But the reason I'm mentioning is because a lot of 22-year-olds are not thinking along the lines that Michael is, and Michael's putting his own time, effort, and presumably money into these projects, and I think it's bloody admirable. That's why you don't get many people of that age doing it. If he was in his 30s, okay, I get it, but 22, that's really a young age to start making films on these very difficult subjects. That was my question.
And what Russ was getting at is he asked you what motivates you to do that. So what does
okay, good. Because I am totally got what he asked me. So I thought,
I have that. Sorry.
So what motivates me is if I can help one person be inspired by what I'm doing, or if I can help someone, that's all my effort and work. No. It has paid off now, so I just don't want to be one of them. So when I make my depression one or my cancer one, I want people in the documentary to shine. I just don't want them to think it's all me. If it weren't from them, I wouldn't have been able to do them.
But don't underestimate, because you give them a platform. So in exactly the same way that I don't believe for a second that Russ or I really do this program to necessarily sort of boost ourselves too much. It's more about highlighting others. I think at the same time, we both recognize that this platform is important. And the fact that you give someone a platform to talk about subjects that are ordinarily very difficult, especially, here we go with the age thing again, for people of, say, millennial generation, it is nothing but admirable.
Yeah.
Now, Paul Claridge, our listener, one of our listeners, a regular listener. It's so annoying when you get pop-ups, isn't it? Michael is inspirational. What an amazing young man he is. Now, Paul has battled cancer, and I was going to suggest that he and you get together. And he, interesting. He might be very good for your film. He's a delightful guy, and he's been very, very brave and courageous and positive. So he'd be a good guy for you to talk to.
Yeah,
because in the sense that he's extraordinarily candid. He's very open, very honest, and just says it how it is.
Yeah. Yeah, because I can't really tell you guys what will happen at the end of the cancer one, because it's really a personal thing. So I can't really say on air, because there wouldn't be no point watching it. No, but I'm looking forward to, because it's out October 1st. So I'm very looking forward to sharing it.
And when you say it's out, are you going to put it up on social media, or how will it be distributed?
So I will put it on Facebook. I'm going to put it on my YouTube account. And so I had in total, my stammer is me. I had 8,000 people watch it. So
blimey! Wow,
whoa, liking that. Paul Claridge, God, Russ, put my teeth in. Paul Claridge has come back and said, yes, definitely up for that, whenever Michael wants to do it. So there you are. I think you two would get on extremely well, and I think it would really be a great. I think that would be good. So his name's Paul Claridge. You can contact him on Facebook, and then the two of you could hook up and do whichever one. And Martin Bell, who's obviously doing work with people who stammer over in Mallorca, he says, well done, Michael. So you are you're a bit of a hit, to be honest. You're a little bit of a hit today.
Can you give us a bit of an insight, give us a bit of a clue as to what life was like before either speech therapy or before going to Michael Palin Center? What was the difference between then and now in terms of your ability to speak? Because I've got to be honest, listening to you now, you speak remarkably fluid for someone who has a stammer. So they've obviously done wonders.
Yeah. So with me, you know, I weren't confident, and I feel if you're confident about something, it does help. And I'm still have my good days. I have my bad days. But if I'm having a bad day, I just remind myself on how I felt on my good days. No, so I did feel very unconfident, and the Michael Palin Center did help me with that.
Where
and
is the
also,
Michael Palin?
well, I did. Yep.
Where is
Sorry,
the Michael Palin Center? Where is the Michael Palin Center?
It's near Farringdon Station. Okay. So it's near there. So it's a very tiny building, so you wouldn't tell it's there.
Well, they've obviously done a terrific job, and their work sounds. I love the photo of you with Michael Palin, by the way. That is
yep.
That is very cool. When you sent your bio and everything through, I thought, oh, that's Michael Palin.
Yeah. So I tell you a interesting story about him. So I was talking to his agent on and off for about a year, and I didn't realize it was his agent. I thought it was some like random person. And then when I got to his house, I thought it would be someone like his agent would answer the door, but it was him. And he just, oh yeah, come in, it's fine. And the person who I had helping me with the filming work, my best friend Jacob Hooper, he has a stammer as well. And we were just in shock, thinking, "Oh my God, we're going to be interviewing Sir Michael Palin," and he was the nicest person you could ever meet. So,
isn't that good to hear? Because you know he's always been he's probably one of Phil's heroes, but he's definitely been always one of my heroes from the Monty Python days onwards. And he seems like such a nice guy, and it's so lovely when you have your opinion, your guess about somebody reinforced, and the flip side of that, of course, it's so horribly depressing and disappointing when somebody you think, I bet they're great, and then you meet them and they're an absolute monster.
Yeah,
you think, all those years I thought they were a great person, they're just horrible. And, you know, so it's lovely. Everyone says Michael Palin's delightful. I think he's a terrific guy.
Do
you agree, Phil?
Luckily, I'm getting better now.
What?
I said, but luckily I'm getting better now as I'm a better human being now.
That's what?
Yes,
than what?
so he's...
When you first meet someone, they're a monster.
Oh, yeah, you're improving. Slowly.
Yeah. Talk about a joke worth explaining anyway.
It really wasn't. Yeah, I didn't get it. I thought you went well for a second there.
Yeah,
Michael, if people want to get it...
yeah, go.
No, if people want to know more...
So just to... Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
On, carry on. Don't worry, carry on.
Sorry, so to tell you, Michael Palin is a generally nice guy, and I asked him to sign a book for my dad, who is a big fan, and he sent it through the post, the actual next day. So he's really a kind guy. So
Dear God. Sadly, we've had a message from Timmy Alexis Carrington Ward.
Oh, no.
Did you know I was in the meaning of life, dear? Oh, God.
That's
Timmy, we don't care. We don't care. That was the last time you worked. Right. Now, Michael, if people want to know more about you, how do we get hold of you? What's all your addresses and everything?
Where do they go? What do they do?
If you type in on online YouTube, if you go on MDA Productions, and they will see all my films on there. So, and I will comment down below where you can find it.
So that's MDA Productions. If you just Google that,
so
that's the website, and
yep, it should come up.
Okay, we'll do that. And as I said, Michael, our offer, if you would like us to help promote your films, which sound marvelous and important, if you would like us to do that at Men's Radio and Women's Radio, we would be absolutely delighted to do that. And anything we can do to support you, because we're all in this together. I think this sounds so patronizing. Please don't take it that way. I think you're a remarkable person. I do. I think you're remarkable. And one of our listeners, Linda Dave, no relation, says, "What an unbelievably inspirational guest." So that's the impact you've had all over the world, people listening and watching to this show. And thank you again from Phil, Dave, and myself, and all the team at Men's Radio. I really, really appreciate it. I think you've been great. And please stay in touch. Please do. Okay.
Thanks for having me on. Well.
Beyond a pleasure. We thank you. Okay.
Farewell, Michael. Bye.
Take care, Michael.
Wow.
What a great guy.
This is why I love the job we do. Meeting people like Michael. Wow.
Yeah, you feel uplifted, don't you? You feel totally uplifted. You think to yourself, there's a guy who could have just sat down and woe is me. And no, what did he do? He took something which really was difficult and he dealt with it head on, and he's gone on to do great. And he's 22. I think that's sensational. It's so inspirational when you come across people like that, because I've never met him before. We've never spoken to him. Phil and I don't know him, and you never know how these conversations are going to go. And that was lovely. It was really great.
It's meeting people like Michael, though. This is such a dichotomy. I love this show. I love what we do, but I'm completely and utterly torn between loving it and making me feel so pointless, because it's when you meet people like Michael where you think, I've got nothing to show for my life.
You don't need to have a show for that. I can do that for you every day. I can just message you, and believe me, that's taken care of. I'm going to have to ask. I'm going to ask the silly bitch. Why, Timmy? What part did you? I'm already dreading even asking this, but he's opened the door. Let's go there. So Timmy Alexis Carrington Ward, what pivotal, huge role were you in the meaning of life? Wait for it.
Oh no. You have been warned, Timmy. I shall make you both feel inspired tomorrow night, girls. Heaven help us. Thank goodness for alcohol. Anyway.
Oh God. Hey, you know what, Phil? If you're ever going to wear that full face mask, tomorrow night's the night.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I'd wear it the whole time. And it'll cut down your drinking, and also you won't be able to hear Timmy. Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, quite.
Why am I really not surprised? Shame you didn't take it to heed, Timmy. You can read his comments on the right there. Did you get mentioned in the credits? Were you above the line of the because they always argue in the contract. Oh dear God. For those of you who are not watching, who are listening, Timmy sang I can't bring myself to read. I can't bring myself to read this.
No.
I just cannot bring myself to read it. I just
In other news, by the way, if you do want more information, by the way, on Michael or his films, you can always search MDA Productions on YouTube. That's where you need to go, okay?
Yeah.
So do a search for that, and you'll be able to find, I'm sure, the films that he has put out there. So there you go.
Good for him, eh?
Excellent. Right.
Takes a lot of bottle to say, I'm going to make a film. It sounds so easy, but it's a lot of planning. It's a lot of thought. It's got to be good. It's got to be right, because it's got your name all over the tin. That's the thing about anything that you do in art, anything to do with art. And it's not pretentious to say it. You're putting yourself out there. You're exposing yourself to the world, and this is me. This is who I am. I hope you like it.
You are absolutely right. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that there's only ever one time, the only thing that I've actually remotely got out there, which for the record was totally and utterly not my fault at all. But there is less film, but there is what's wrong with you?
Nothing.
Less film. There's more of a clip, shall we say, that's put out there on YouTube of me. And you know how you say you've got to be very careful because it's potentially got your name all over it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to try, by the wonders of modern technology, to show you said clip, really.
I'll be honest, I'm a bit overexcited, I don't mind telling you.
Hang on a sec. I mean, this is why it is really important.
I hope you don't have to pay any rights to Pornhub.
No, none of
got the money.
This is why you have to be very careful, okay, with what goes out there. Okay, right. So hopefully you can see this on screen now, because this was caught on no, this is fine. This was caught on CCTV and put on YouTube. Anyway, so yes. Unbelievable. So yeah, you do have to be incredibly careful when.
Where was that? That is classic.
What happened?
Please show it again, please. That was just fantastic. Oh God.
Hang on. Right.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. I know if you're listening on radio going, what the hell? But oh God, this is genius.
We'll go through the pain of it in a moment.
This is just genius.
Oh dear. So for anyone who didn't see that on radio, allow me to explain. What happened is that I was visiting.
It's the best thing ever.
Part of my work when I'm not in radio is I work in computers, and I was visiting a computer client. And as most tradesmen will do, I was going through the proverbial tradesman's entrance at the back of the shop.
Back to Timmy Alexis Carrington Ward.
Thank you very much indeed.
Tradesman's entrances.
Tradesman's entrance at the back of the shop, where I might have been paying a little too much attention to my mobile and replying to a text message to notice that actually the shutter at the back of the shop was halfway down. So when I was walking into said shop, I was so busy looking at my phone that I full throttle whacked into the shutter and actually bruised the bridge of my nose. So it was about 3 weeks I was walking around with a bruise on the bridge of my nose. Blooming painful.
I gotta tell you, it's pure Roadrunner. That is pure. It's Tom and Jerry meets Roadrunner. It was fantastic.
Absolutely shocking. What happened is that the noise was so loud from the shutter that the client, when I got inside, said, "What the hell was that?" And I explained what happened.
Look at my nose.
Rather than take sympathy of the fact that I could have very easily have broken my nose at that stage, I didn't. But I could have.
Tell you what, if the shutter had been in all seriousness, another slightly different height, you would have really smacked yourself seriously worse.
So rather than take pity on me and say, "Oh, are you okay?" They decided afterwards, without telling me, that they were going to forward this to my boss, the CCTV footage, and saying something along the lines of "thought you could do with a laugh." Yeah, thanks for that. And subsequently, this boss of mine happened to forward it on to a friend/colleague who put it on YouTube. Thanks for that. But anyway, I'm the one who got.
I thought it was going to be on. You've been. What was it called? You've been framed, or
Oh, I see. You've been very. Yeah. Well, actually,
each do the funniest thing.
Well, do you know what? I'm technically the one with the last laugh because CNN picked it up and put it. Not CNN. Sorry, MSN. Sorry, MSN picked it up and put it on their funny section of the website. And with thanks to them, 12,500 hits. I thank you. So I can live with that.
There's no revenue from it, so I don't know what you're getting excited about.
But you say that. Curiously enough, no, you're right. There is no revenue. Not a joke. Don't know whether or not this was serious or not, but it's not a joke that I actually genuinely did receive this email. I got an email from somebody saying, we've seen this clip. Would it be okay if we used it in a potential advertising campaign?
Genius. Should have understood. Well, this is crap. Look, I've just opened up. These are little spectacle wipes, right? This is bone dry. What the hell? They're supposed to be moist.
Whoops.
Story of my life, dear. It's bone. Let's try again. Hang on. I'm going to get the pack.
Oh dear.
No, I'm getting the pack. What? Look, here we go. So I got this whole big pack. Hello, I'm on QVC. I'm trying again.
We are advertising these beautiful handcrafted lens wipes.
Each one, yes. Phil, you wear sunglasses. Do you find these really useful?
Do you know what, Russ? I'm not just saying it. These are incredible. Whenever my glasses get the remotest bit dirty, in particular, when I find myself short of a handkerchief, I just turn to my glasses.
And of course, they're so much more hygienic, aren't they, Phil?
Oh, they're amazing. The only way that I can deal with it after, I don't know why we're talking about Prince Charles. The only way I can deal with this is by using one of these spectacle wipes that are bone dry. I'm hastening to add. Don't worry, there'll be absolutely no moisture left in them whatsoever. By the time they get to you, they will be dry, so that's fine.
And of course, Phil, one of the things that so many of you notice is when you wipe your spectacles, it could scratch. But with these, there's no scratching, is there, Phil?
And you know what? It's incredible that all of this could be yours for just 3 monthly installments of £250. It's a bargain. You will not.
If you went out into the retail, into the shop, these would be at least £750 a pack. Our special price to you is £250. You can break it down into easy, no fuss, no frills monthly installments.
Yes. It's not really a wonder you and I didn't end up on QVC, is it?
I went from. Do you know what? Somebody said you should be doing it. So years ago, let's try. Now we're talking. Yes.
Mind you,
nice.
with thanks to Dexter from a couple of weeks ago, we might end up.
What, on QVC? Yeah. So somebody said, "Oh, you should do this. You should do." So I went. QVC was along Queenstown Road, I seem to remember. Brings us back to Timmy Alexis Carrington Ward, and I did the things, and you know what they said? It killed me. They said,
"You're not out for this broadcasting."
They said, I think I was doing the Flying Eye. So it was it was years ago. So this is pre-2004. So this is about 2001. Cleans a big carpet for less than half a crown. Anyway, so I went along, did the audition and everything, and they treat you like a piece of crap. I got to tell you, you're auditioning to be a member of Mensa or coming into the finest Oxford College. I mean, they're just selling stuff on TV, right? And they said, the problem is, Russ, you have too much personality and you would detract from the product. What does that mean? I love that. I mean, why don't they just say, Russ, you're shit, get out? So that was the end of my QVC audition, which took ages to get, by the way. It was they put you through the hoop for that.
Am I allowed to say that to you?
What? I got too much personality and I detract from the product.
No, there may well be an element of that. No, I was saying, but couldn't they just say, Russ, you are,
Yeah, shit. You just get out the building. You're rubbish. And then I went for a time back in the late 90s, maybe 2000, to a place called Ideal World. Christ. God almighty.
Chrissy Holt, how old are you, Russ? 80?
How old am I? What do you mean? Am I 80? No, I'm not 80. Why do you say that?
Wow.
Do I look 80? It's bloody rude. How old are you? Yeah. No, I'm not 80. What do you think of that? But they make us laugh so happy that they are nuttier than a peanut brittle. Who? Oh, Chrissy Holt, both of us, yes. Yeah, Francine Warner, my cousin, is pointing out that our mutual cousin, Francine's mum, late mum, who just went, the famous Auntie Sylvia, and my dad were brother and sister, and my dad and Sylvia, one of 8, seemingly my grandfather, who died in 1946, didn't have a TV. And so our mutual cousin, Cyril, she did QVC. Oh, boy, I'd have loved to have seen that. That would have been brilliant.
Chrissy Holt, he talks too much. You don't get a chance, Phil. Lol, 72.
Okay, I'm done. That's it. Right, off you go.
Oh, Chrissy, I've dreamed of this. Thank you so much. You should have.
I'm gone now. Go on. Off you go.
Gone. You're still talking. You should have come along earlier. Do you know what? I reckon we've got a chance to tell you now what else is coming up on this program. In about 10 minutes' time, we are going to meet Todd Sharpville. Now, Todd Sharpville is actually a musician who, over the years, he's dabbled in quite a few different genres, frankly. But he's not going to talk about his music career. Oh, no, he's actually going to talk about living with depression, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Russell?
I don't know. I've got to ask Chrissy if I can talk.
For goodness sake. Anyway, he's going to talk about...
I'll tell you what he's done. He's done something absolutely amazing. He isolated himself with his band. Todd Sharpville, by the way, is a big deal musician. He's not just some Herbert. And he isolated with his band, and they have been together for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. It's a very interesting thing. But also, I thought, well, that's quite interesting, because I've had a lot of conversations with him in the last few months. But then he wanted to talk about depression. And I thought, that's our boy. So that's a huge subject on that. You're 72, Chrissy Holt. And you're still driving a tractor.
Anyway, now, so it's Todd Sharpville is going to join us in about 10 minutes' time. He'll be talking about depression and coping with it. And hopefully, I would imagine as well, dealing with some of it through the world of music as well. And then at 1:30, our Friday regular, she's back. Chantal Rickards will be here with a little bit of advice on what to watch on the box over the course of the next week. If you're isolating and a bit bored, well, hey, we've got the perfect solution.
She's fantastic. Chrissy Holt, I've had my orders from Mike to take him. I love this. To take him a cup of tea at 4:00. You know, you've been together, 32 years, 36 years, you said? And I love the fact that bring me tea at 4. It's fabulous. One could only dream of such a relationship.
If my memory says...
I would say that, but I don't want to walk around with a Sabatier carving knife in the middle of my chest. Probably reason I don't say things like that.
It's true. It's certainly not what I'm getting cut up about.
No. It's interesting. You're very happy being on your own, aren't you, Phil? I know you weren't expecting that question, but you are. It's something that you rail against when people say, "Oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" You like being on your own. Yeah,
it's really strange because I don't actually get that very often. I mean, truly. And look, thank God I don't, because I believe I'm very lucky for that. Make no mistake, as much as I love my own company, and I'm fairly sure there'll be people watching this who are either living by themselves and have had to isolate by themselves all throughout lockdown and it's been hell on earth for them. And because they probably prefer company. I am quite odd in the sense, well, I'm not quite odd, I'm extremely odd, but I am quite odd in the sense that I do quite enjoy my own company. So when I am, for example, in the car on my own and there's nothing around me, no one around me, no passengers, nothing like that, just the solitude of me and maybe the radio or a bit of music or something like that.
That's great. I love it.
A great opportunity to recharge. A recharge just to get my thoughts together. And as I actually sort of said a few weeks ago as well, I find it a great bit of therapy because do you remember I was saying that I was a bit concerned that more and more I was finding myself, I say talking to myself, but it was worse than talking to myself. It was talking to somebody who wasn't necessarily there. In other words, before you start calling anyone or getting worried, for those who missed it, I was talking about saying I would reenact if I was speaking to someone and I hadn't maybe confronted them properly, or I hadn't said something to them that I wanted to say to them, or I maybe didn't have the confidence to say to them in person. As therapy, I say it out loud when I'm on my own to get it out the system. Now, you may turn to me and you may say,
no, we talked about this before. I do the same thing. You reenact a scene with the words that you wished you'd said at the time. And I think that's very cathartic. I think that's a good thing.
It's very
great.
It's very, very cathartic because it gets it out the system. Is the only way I can describe it, because even if you don't necessarily say it to the individual, it doesn't matter. Saying it out loud, and even in your mind, just telling yourself that that's what you have said to that individual, it does make a massive difference. Now, obviously, I couldn't necessarily walk around the house if I live in the family home, which I do, with other people around, so the parents or any other family members that come around from time to time. Obviously, I couldn't say that where I am and with other people around, because they really would get very worried about me.
Yeah, but you're lucky because you're in the West Wing, and that's, what is that, a suite of about 12 bedrooms, dining room and snooker room, so they're not going to hear you.
Don't exaggerate. It's only 10 bedrooms.
Oh, you're right.
Right. But it's still, I think sort of the moments of solitude are pretty important. So for me, yes, I do absolutely appreciate, recognize, and dare I say, enjoy a moment of solitude here and there.
See, here's the thing. I'm going to come back to this in a minute, right? So Chrissy Holt gets ordered by her husband of the last millennium to bring tea at 4 o'clock. Francine Warner, Michael, that's her husband, oddly enough, called Michael Warner. Who'd have thought? Michael Warner has breakfast in bed and looked after like a king. Jeez, what would Auntie Sylvia say? And then Chrissy Holt, I wait on him hand and foot, Francine, but I don't mind. Try having a mini schnauzer. That's it. You just get a look. That's it. That is the whole deal. That is the whole deal.
It's the whole 16 bathrooms.
Yeah, well, you know, he's got a choice.
Yeah, right.
It's the ancestral home handed down from Dave to Dave.
You know, it's just it's the Dave to Dave life. But
this is interesting. Here's the thing. Oh, millions of years ago. This is interesting. Somebody's saying that they do, especially if it keeps you awake. I think it was Andrea who was saying, you know, if it keeps you awake at night, it's better to voice these things. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, especially if it stops you sleeping. This is what Andy said. You know, Chrissy, you are the only problem, of course, with having 16 bathrooms, and it's such a drag, honestly. Yeah, because no sooner have you just finished cleaning all of the 16 bathrooms, you have to start all over again.
It's like the fourth bridge. It's the fourth bridge of bathrooms. That's what it is. It's the fourth bridge. I mean, be honest, how much sillet bang do you get through in a week?
Oh, shocking. Absolutely.
They bring up a tanker, don't they? They bring up a tanker of just sillet bang. Hey, I got a question.
So hang on. Do you know who the person who did the sillet bang adverts was? Do you remember his name?
No. Oh, Barry. Don't tell me. Barry. Oh, but hang on. Sorry, Barry. I'm Barry Scott.
Yes, there you go. So
that wasn't his real name, by the way. He was an actor. There was nobody called Barry Scott.
May well be the case. However, in the mornings now, on one of the programs that I produce, our travel reader is a guy called Gary Scott. huge delight in ripping the proverbial by saying, traffic's gone.
Hey, there's an advert that's on. I'm not turning this into BBC Norwich, but there is an advert that's driving me mad at the moment. And there's a guy, he's got a side, I don't know what's happened to my hair because I've got my clippers, it's all gone crap. But anyway, I've been doing this since January, so I think I've overdone it a fraction. All right, so what, it'll work. But there's this guy, and he's got this side parting, and he seems to talk from the side of his mouth. And then he goes, and he keeps going like this. It's for a washing powder thing, right? So he keeps going, yeah, stain's gone. It looks white. Blah, 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 blah. Queue up for smoked salmon. I mean, I don't know what it is. And I want to reach through and punch him in the head. I want to pick up a chair and smack him in the head. It drives me mad. And what I love, it's one of those fake. Oh, Ken, you're right. The Dave family, they do have. There's been a lot of trouble with those maids. A lot of them had to be, sent away for a while. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about, Ken.
It was terrible. We had to put the staff on furlough.
The whole thing. especially those little outfits he makes them wear. And it's one of those adverts with this washing thing that they've got one of the fake audiences, which is all actors and actresses because they've got sod all else to do. And he'll go, "Are you worried about these stains?" And like, you're sitting there, the world's going to hell in a handcart. "Are you worried about these stains?" And in the audience, they're going, "Yes." And they're talking to each other like they've just been found a cure for eternal life. And it's like, it's just the most ridiculous, phony setup. The other one that's driving me mad, and I think it is Sillet Bang or something like that. There's this, this woman. And she's quite an attractive youngish woman, and she's in her bathroom, and you think she's just been told that a nuclear missile was about to completely eviscerate the whole of her neighborhood. She's got this thing. I get so, her face is so contorted with worry. And she's doing this with her shoulders, which drives me up the pole. She goes, "Do you have stains in your shower?" And I'm going, what the hell else have you got going on in your life, for Christ's sake? You're this worried about shower stains?
Steady on, Russell. Your microphone's saturated after that impression.
Do you have stains? I get so worried. It's like, what the hell's the matter with you? Get a grip.
Someone else who's probably thinking what the hell's the matter with you is our next guest, Todd Sharpville, who's a musician who is waiting in the digital green room. And I have to tell you, has one of the finest beards you are ever going to see. Okay? Are you paying attention to this? I'm warning you. I want the compliments for the beard because it's legend. As is he. Todd Sharpville makes his way onto the screen now. Todd, a very good afternoon.
Holy moly.
Afternoon to all.
How that is a beard.
Now, how are you in the beard?
I'm good, thanks. I mean, the beard is a little bit smaller than it was actually earlier on.
Oh, now, Todd,
are you joining ZZ Top? You're going to replace Billy Gibbons?
Not quite. I call it the Robinson Crusoe kind of lockdown look. You know.
Yeah,
it'll probably come off when this is all over.
Now, Todd, I need to ask you a really boring technical favor. Could you please turn your device 90 degrees so we can see you in landscape mode? Is that all right? There we go. Much better. Look at that.
Oh, great.
Oh, no, there you go.
That's
wonderful.
It looks very nice where you are.
Yes. And may I congratulate you on having what has become now a custom amongst the world of doing these interviews from one's home or wherever one is happens to be, of having the statutory bookcase behind you. Well done, sir. That's very good.
I just came to the room where there was the best internet connection.
Yeah, it instantly ups the level of intellect.
And those books look like they're old, proper books. I love stuff like that. It looks like they're, they've been well read and well thumbed. So that's good. Now, Todd, you and I have had loads of sort of off-air conversations and phone conversations about other stuff. Tell us, before we get into the whole depression thing, tell us about this huge undertaking which you did, which is extraordinary.
My lockdown, I'm assuming you're talking about. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, start of the lockdown, I was somewhat concerned, a little bit worried about the premise that there wouldn't be an organic live band under one roof. The contemporary premise of people working with each other remotely and there being lots of little boxes all across the screen for many. And I made a few phone calls and discovered that no one in the States or anywhere else seemed to be doing the same sort of thing. So I roped together a band of professional musicians, rented a giant house in Norfolk, and since the start of the lockdown, we've all been living together with each other's families, like a musical commune, facilitating the music industry, doing gigs for live music fans who I think have come to expect over the years the organic nature or premise of a bunch of guys on the same stage in the same room rubbing up against each other rather than being in little boxes across the screen. So
you did this very safely, didn't you, Todd? Because you went into isolation. Am I right? Before you all went in together into this house.
Yeah, and I COVID tested everyone prior to convening. We did this all very, very legally and above board, in compliance with the government legislation at the time. But yeah, it's 8 adults, 2 dogs, a 1-year-old child, and a 3-year-old child.
Ooh.
And we're all
Going
living
so
together.
well up to that point.
This is fabulous. I love this because you've sort of set a trend here, because as you rightly identify, those who were expecting the status quo, and I don't mean the rock band, I mean the status quo in terms of how a band should look, in other words, where everyone is under one roof. Of course, that's all gone for so many musicians now, and yet you've managed to find a way around it. I love it. It's brilliant. What kind of reaction have you had to it?
I mean, predominantly, I mean, my fear was, and actually this brings us a little bit towards the mental health situation. I mean, I've come to know a fair few fans over the last 30 years of my career, come to know them personally. And I mean, there's many people out there around the world who, for them, their live music gig going activities is a form of music therapy. There are people who don't have much in the way of families or close friends. And the chemistry an interaction that that pervades the live music experience and the gigs they go to during the week normally, and what they tune into on social media is very much what steals them through life and what provides them the human interaction. And it was the fear that there'd probably be a mental health issue amongst many if that suddenly just disappeared and vanished overnight. So my primary concern was making sure that still existed for their sake. And as a secondary thing, I made sure that all of the musicians that I put around me, that everyone had enough combined CV weight of working with established artists over the years to inspire some collaborative trust and faith from within the music industry on both sides of the Atlantic.
Tell us some of the artists you've worked with, because it's a who's who really of music.
Me myself, I mean, I started out. I've been a name on the blues world predominantly. So when I started out putting backing bands together as a kid for Ike Turner, Hubert Sumlin from Howling Wolf's band, artists like that. But then over the years, I mean, Joe Cocker, from Joe Cocker to Robbie Williams and everything in between, really.
Correct. Did you meet Ike? I'm sorry. This is just piqued my interest hugely. Did you ever meet Ike Turner?
Of course. I in my early 20s, I used to put, I was his musical director. I put together backing bands for him.
Dear God!
Wow.
And was he as horrible as everyone says?
No, not at all. I mean, there are people like Ike. I mean, I worked with Chuck Berry as well, and various other people who have reputations for being somewhat difficult. I mean, Van Morrison's another one who has a reputation. But I mean, I've never experienced any problems or issues in those kind of regards. People seem to forget. People, I think, increasingly, and thanks to social media, people are increasingly quite unforgiving. Humans we're all fluid creatures, and we all grow and we all develop and we all change. And to be judged on yesterday's standards, let alone what I was like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, is somewhat frustrating.
Because my mate John Altman, not the actor but the brilliant musician, you presumably know John, and he worked with Van Morrison and played sax with him for quite a while, and his stories are like jaw-dropping. So
we all have our moments, and and we're all complex creatures, especially in any artistic sort of veneer. And it's and we're all fluid creatures who change and morph over the years. Some people get better, some people get worse. So
has your isolation, when you first presented this idea to me like weeks and weeks and weeks ago, and we talked about it, and I said, wow, I thought that was great. I wish you all the best of luck with it. Has it gone as well as you'd hoped, or
yeah,
better?
I mean, I kept my eyes open to the premise that the situation itself would guide me. I didn't quite know what to expect when it all started. I just wanted to make sure, really, that, like I say, the punters who needed that chemistry interaction of real musicians together in one place, making music as one, and then simultaneously making sure that the music industry had a live band under one roof that had enough experience to be able to facilitate their needs and endeavors, because there's plenty of genres of music that require, for example, when recording, that still require a live rhythm section together in one place. I mean, there's all kinds of genres that still require that kind of nuance, and I was worried and concerned that might not exist when the lockdown kicked in.
If we broaden our chat a bit more, we've had a lot of artists on, Right Said Fred, and Suzi Quatro and people like that, and actors and actresses as well. and putting it under the umbrella of the arts, if you like, and live entertainment, Ray Gelato, of course. It's a frightening and depressing situation, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for an industry that requires a lot of people to be together in one place, to then suddenly remove that part of the equation, it's terrifying. And I think we're being expected to believe that all of this is going to remedy itself somehow overnight, but of course it's more complicated than that. I mean, not only have the audiences been removed from the equation in a physical sense, many artists have been forced to do other things in order to, I'm not really just talking about artists. I mean, I'm here in a sense flying the flag for all of the foot soldiers of the live music industry, and that means the technical crew, sound engineers, roadies, guitar techs. I mean, everybody, and there's swathes of people involved normally. So many of them, won't be able to readily come straight back to it when things do finally manage to remedy themselves, which of course won't really happen until there's either a vaccine or a cure. But also equally, I mean, venues have been struggling massively, and many venues of note all over the world are closing down at the moment. Some have closed down already. Many are on their way out. Take away their ability to trade and do their normal thing overnight. And whilst waiting for government assistance and whatever else, many people had very fragile balance sheets up until this point anyway. And we're going to end up really with a slightly dystopian situation of musicians trying to return to the fray and realizing that there aren't that many places that they're going to be able to play when they come back. I mean, the bar scene and the grassroots club scene will always, supply and demand will always take care of itself in that regard. And some places will close down, but new places will open, and there's space for that to happen. But anywhere in the sort of 800 capacity range up to arena standard is effectively going to, there are places that are closing down. They'll be bought back off the receivers by developers, and they'll be turned into anything that's more profitable than music at the end of the day. Retail development.
That is my,
housing
you've hit the nail on the head. This is something that really concerns me, is that it will be bought up by people at rock bottom prices because the people will be desperate to offload whatever premises they have.
Sure.
And there is, of course, no guarantee that they will come back fit for purpose for what they were, and they could be turned into, anything like that. How much do you believe that music helps people's mental health?
Hugely. I mean, I've had my own experiences personally in that regard. If it wasn't for music, I think my mental health would be in far more dire straits than it already is.
How so? In all seriousness, how do you feel it would be different if it weren't for music?
Look, this is something that goes back to the very inception of time. I mean, the subconscious, the emotional effect that music has played on the human psyche since the very beginning of since the very beginning of time, and the way that mankind has chosen to express itself and communicate. There's the unwritten subliminal elements of musical communication. That's the unwritten language that everybody understands, and it's something that no matter what culture or what nationality or what history your culture represents, that can communicate en masse to everybody at a very, very deep level. People don't realize it. I mean, because in a sense, over the, I suppose really between the 80s and now, music has more so become more and more of a commodity in a product sense, something that people believe they can pick up and they can put down off the shelf. But, if it was...
Explain that a bit more.
Well, I mean, look, in the 80s, come the late 80s, I mean, many of the record labels that had been founded on the back of passion by their owners were sold off. I mean, many people, Chris Blackwell at Island Records, Jerry Bron at Bronze Records, Richard Branson. I mean, many of them were retiring, and they sold the labels to large corporations. Others like Richard Branson wanted to start his record label, his airline, and needed cash to do it. And we found bit by bit that the business side of music started to really be based on the balance sheet rather than anything else. And the passionate founders of these labels, worked on the premise, for example, of the old-fashioned development deal, which is something that's fast evaporating, where there were many artists who they knew were going to fail during the first 1, 2, 3, or 4 albums, but they knew at some point or another they were going to hit it. And that passion is what kept them in the game with those artists. And there are many people from Pink Floyd to Bruce Springsteen to all kinds of huge names that under today's premise of the way that the business works would never have made it past the seeming flunk of the first album or the second album.
Well, they would have been let go. In other words, they wouldn't have had the investment to watch them grow. I was watching the most wonderful live webinar last night with my favorite author, Anthony Horowitz, being interviewed by the other author, not the silly model, but the proper author, Kate Moss, spelt differently. And he didn't have success until his 11th book. It was an Alex Rider book, and that broke through. So it's a parallel thing. He kept going, and they still believed in him. But they would have said, no, Mr. Horowitz, it's not for you. And, you know, he's one of the most successful authors in the world and one of the nicest guys as well. It's interesting. Here's Andrea Lucas's comment. Music is very emotional to people and can really help. I think
Paul Claridge says in the other words, he says that I fear that the live music venues will never be the same again. On a plus point, it was good to hear that the Ain't Nothing But the Blues at Bar in Soho has been saved. New trusted owners now have it in their safe hands. But I think it depends which way you look at this. I really believe that music, live theatre, all of these things are not going to die. Honestly, I don't think they are going to. I believe they're going through an incredibly rough patch that the likes we've never seen in any of our lifetimes. But I'm a great believer that once all of this is over, there will be a need for live music, for live theatre, and for live performance in general. And I believe that there will be places that crop up, new places that crop up that people want to go to watch them.
Yeah, look, Phil, I wouldn't disagree with you, but I mean, but these things are in levels, depending on what sort of size venues we're talking about. I mean, the space that it requires in most major capitals or small cities around the world for things. I mean, if you look at London, let's say, look at places the size of, you know, from the Forum in Kentish Town, the Coco's in Camden, the Roundhouse, the Hammersmith Apollo, the Albert Hall even. Now, I mean, we know that with the arts fund that's been thrown into the kitty by the government, that, you know, the crown jewels like the Albert Hall will be saved, the Royal Opera House and such. But there are lots of places, you know, from, you know, the Wigmore Hall sort of size to the Hammersmith Apollo, that effectively are going to go down, and that the space doesn't exist for such developments to be redeveloped for the sake of live music. And certainly when it comes down to profit incentive for developers, there isn't enough profit incentive for those kinds of businesses versus what else you could do with that kind of space. And if you're looking at, you know, housing development projects and things like that, there's a lot more cash to be made in property development rather than live music. And there aren't legal remits that insist in many cases that venues have to be kept for the sake of live music.
That's probably definitely its biggest challenge, is the fact that you could purchase somewhere and then reuse it. But then on the flip side, wouldn't it be the case that if the venues are such in dire straits, that one would assume the owners are probably looking just to get rid of them as quickly as possible? And there has to be someone out there, I would have thought, sadly it's not me, I wished it was, but someone out there who enjoys the arts that much that they wouldn't want to see the venue go to the dog's way and therefore save it.
You know, in some instances, yes, but come on, we both know in the kind of supply and demand based world that we live in, that if you've got investment cash to buy a property with or to buy a certain amount of land, especially if you have to answer to shareholders and investors, at the end of the day, you need to be putting that cash into something that's going to provide the most profit. Many of these venues were mismanaged from day one, so many of them were in financial dire straits before the COVID thing had even kicked in. The bottom line is that we may well be looking at a rather dystopian situation where, beyond being able to see, you know, bands down your local pub or your local club at a small scale, or having your wallet raked by Live Nation at the Enormo Dome scale, much of what we've been used to historically that happens in between all of that is going to vanish. I mean, you know, this has been my primary concern really since the lockdown kicked in, and it's something that I've been working on with my business partner to try and come up with a structure that would allow us to create a government-backed fund of some sort that would facilitate the situation.
It's it's a very dark day when you think, because people love music. It helps them on so many different levels. It's almost like a visceral connection that you have with it. It plays a very important part in our lives. And the experience of going to a live show cannot be replicated by watching it on Zoom, or it just doesn't. It's just not this. It's not the same as kind of like being there. I don't like big venues; they freak me out. But something, like I don't know. Let's just say Dean Street Pizza Express. I've seen some fantastic bands down there, like Aubrey Logan from the States and people like that, and John Altman indeed himself, or like Ray Gelato. I think this Saturday is doing a live broadcast from the 100 Club, which is going to be a very interesting experiment. Ray Gelato and the Giants. So the thought of not having these smaller venues is not a good one. It's a depressing thought, and I don't think it helps people's mental attitude either.
Sure. I mean, for me, really, I mean, like I said, I believe that many of the smaller venues, I mean, this is where the supply and demand theory kicks in, where I think there is space and there's plenty of availability for places to either reestablish themselves or for new places to crop up. But that in-between range between sort of club land and arena land, that's a very scary reality that we're probably going to see dawn at some point soon. Where the ability to say, oh, someone bought me a ticket for the Wigmore Hall, and I've suddenly now discovered that I actually quite like classical music, or I went to see a band at the Hammersmith Apollo, a friend introduced me to, and they changed my life. I mean, that kind of thing, and the entire industry that accompanies that side of the market. Enough of it vanishing in a relatively short space of time to leave a huge hole culturally in societal, in what was societally used to.
Changing the subject and getting back to something we touched on earlier. You've been you've battled depression, or certainly had depression. What sort of form did it take, and what did you do to overcome it as best you could?
It's something that's affected me, I suppose personally and emotionally for since I was quite young. I specifically about 18 years ago or so hit a very, very rough patch on the back of my divorce. I wasn't emotionally prepared for the premise of suddenly my children not being part of my life overnight, who I was very, very close to always whilst they were growing up. And in many respects, being a musician, doing many of the mum jobs that are really associated with mums. And then suddenly that was removed. And it was the process in front of me of having to equate myself to the courts and going through contact battles and whatever else to remedy the situation, which took a few years. So the immediate impact of that left me in a pretty dire place emotionally, where I ended up needing to reconvene in a mental hospital for the best part of a month and a half at the time.
Wow.
Wow. I didn't know that. Gosh.
Yeah. Wow. And it was a much needed vacation from life, which I think I needed at the time. I was given the option by the doctors of either checking myself in at their bequest and leaving at their bequest at the time they deemed to be right, or that they'd section me. And that was pretty much the option at the time. And of course, being sectioned would have affected and influenced my ability to fight to see my kids.
Completely. Yes.
So I went along with what the doctors suggested.
Can I ask a leading question, Todd? Sure. Forgive me, and if it's too intrusive, tell me to okay. Push off. But it's so important for our listeners from all over the world. How did it manifest itself that you knew you needed to, as you say, take a break from life?
I was suicidal at the point. I'd been through suicidal experiences as a teenager as well. So it was a place that I was familiar with.
You tried to forgive me again for being intrusive, but that's really what Men's Raid is about. Had you attempted to take your own life?
Yes, I had. And it's like I say, it's a place of mind that I'm familiar with. And it's one. I mean, you and I were talking on the phone the other day about this. That I would use the analogy of separation. Separation from the, if you like, the TV show that is the rest of life and reality in the world and others. And you reach a point whereby you can cross the line where you feel as though you're quite separated from all that's going on, and you have no means of impacting it or affecting or changing it, and that people don't really know or notice you in that sense, in a deeper sense. So it's a little bit like suddenly, the world around you becomes a TV show that you're outside of the TV. You're not in the script, and you can't affect or change what's going on within the TV show. And by that point, you're detached enough from it to feel as though you could slip away and no one would really notice.
Wow.
But some of it is called, goes under the heading of witnessing.
Mm-hmm.
That it's termed like if you were walking down the street as an analogy, and you look in the window of a restaurant, you'd be on the outside, and that's how you're going through life. You're witnessing it, but you're not living it. You're not part of it. Yeah. It's a very odd, horrible, remote feeling. It's ghastly.
Absolutely
ghastly. So you went in. You checked in. Let's put it that way. To this place for what? For a month and a half?
Was it about a month and a half? Yeah. I mean, funnily enough, I was broken out in the end a week early by the popular singer Leo Sayer, who came.
Who watches the show most days from Australia,
which is wonderful.
Leo does. How weird is that?
Well, much love to Leo if he's watching. I mean, he's a very, very dear friend and ally, and he at the time was working on an album in Denmark, and he spent the best part of 8 hours driving in one day to come and visit me.
Gosh.
And had a chat with the doctors, and yeah, but as far as Leo is concerned, what I really needed was the responsibility of a guitar being put in my hands, and the responsibility of some music to play. So him and my mum had me on a flight in my dressing gown and pajamas and slippers, made it up to the eyeballs to Denmark, where he was recording at the time, to start work on an album of his, which Leo was 100% correct that what I really needed was a guitar in my hands, and at that point in time, that would facilitate my recovery no end, which is what it did. I owe him a huge debt of gratitude.
Wow. Well, next time he's on, we will. Wow, that's extraordinary. I didn't even know you knew him. So that's. But is there ever been, Phil? What do you think? Has there ever been a more clarity on how music can be so healing and so important? Which is why one of the reasons I wanted Todd onto the show, because. There you are. He's in his dressing gown and slippers on a flight, and he goes from being in a institution or whatever you might call it, hospital,
to a residential recording studio. I mean, it was very much Leo's institution at that point in time. I mean, and there was a comforting security blanket premise of arriving at the studio in Denmark, where I had my bedroom, and there was the canteen area where a lovely lady would come and cook meals for the musicians every day. And it felt institutional enough to make me feel secure at the time. But it was, a different kind of institution, and one that really revolved all around music therapy. And the moment we started working on the first track, I mean, everything came flooding out over the first song. And very sweetly, I think Leo, the cut that he did on the album of the opening track was that very first take of my release after a month and a half of being semi-catatonic in this institution.
And the moment you started working, Todd, I'm just fascinated by this. You've been medded up to the eyeballs. Things are horrible, and yet the moment you start working, the old Todd Sharpville suddenly rises back like a phoenix.
Yeah, well, all the emotions that have been bottled up and hadn't had a means of expressing themselves properly, the way that I naturally, instinctively express myself, rather than the way than when I'm talking. I didn't have the mental capacity to be able to express it, but I did have the playing capacity to be able to do it. And I think that's what Leo tapped into, and he knew me well enough by that point in time to know that that's what I most needed at the time.
It's how we communicate, isn't it? Communication isn't always just verbal. You communicate through picking up a Fender or a Stratocaster or whatever you're playing, and playing the hell out of it, and that's how you communicate. When I was having my own battles, I communicated through writing. It was a fascinating thing. I'd sit behind my word processor, as it was in those days. It wasn't even a laptop, or maybe it'd been an electric typewriter.
To be honest with you, Todd, it still is a word processor, even in this day.
Yeah, it's a Remington typewriter. And something happens to you, doesn't it? Your brain rewires.
It does, and something that that's not really sort of touched on or really understood is the profound effect that has on so many listeners who equally require that kind of subliminal communication emotionally. And as I was saying before, that we've entered an age really where we've become used to music becoming a commodity like any other commodity to a degree that you can pick up and put down. So society, in a sense, has bit by bit stopped understanding in a profound sense just how deep and important that actually is to them, which I think like with many things, until it's removed, people don't realize just how much something seemingly as simple as music really does play emotionally as a part of their everyday life. Can
I read a couple of comments to you,
Sure.
Todd?
Sure.
Ken Elmjanur, who was a top Fleet Street journalist and he knows where all the bodies are buried, trust me. And he says, in the end, it all comes down to box office and the old adage, art for art's sake, money for God's sake. Some concert ticket prices before COVID were quite outrageous.
Sure.
And that's then countered by Andrea Lucas, another very regular listener. Agree with you, she says to Ken El, but some prices were prohibitive, but people would mortgage themselves to go.
Sure. I mean, people are also oblivious to the way that the business happens behind the scenes. I mean, in many cases, these ticket prices aren't attributable to the venues themselves. They're not specifically attributable to the promoters themselves quite often. I mean, these things can be the judgment call of the booking agent who's booking the tour for the artist. It might, in some senses, be the artist management themselves, where recorded music has made less money as time's gone by because of streaming services, and therefore, many people within the business are looking to maintain the income base by cutting costs and by somehow increasing the revenue. In order to make the profit levels, roughly the same as what they were before streaming sort of took over. The blame is often laid at the wrong doorstep in terms of ticket pricing, where the artists themselves are often blamed, or the venues themselves are often blamed. And at the end of the day, the venues are there providing a service for the promoter, the individual promoter who's booked the venue or is renting the venue, and he's doing a service for the booking agent who's booking the tour, who's doing a service on behalf of either the artist directly and their management or the record label. So these, in different scenarios, the blame for such things actually, is often a different door in every individual case.
And you know what, Todd? I'd say that you're doing a service by being kind enough to come on this show and to talk to us about it. If people want more information on you and your music and maybe listen to some of the music that you put out there since this lockdown nightmare began, where can they go for more information, sir?
That's very kind. If they do a search on YouTube for Todd Sharpville, that's SHARPVILLE, or look for me at Todd Sharpville Official, I think is in one word, on Facebook is my music profile.
Now,
it would be, we stream the gigs every Saturday.
Horrible of me to put you on the spot like this, but hey, I do it all the same. Will you come back, sir? Because there's loads more we want to talk about.
I'd very much love to.
Excellent. Good news.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Todd Sharpville,
absolute pleasure.
For joining us on Men's Radios this afternoon. It's been great to chat. Goodbye.
Isn't this interesting? Now, there's a message here from Chrissy Richards. And, one of the things that constantly blows me away about Men's Radio is the way that, thank you for being so honest and being so open and sharing. Chrissy Richards writes, do you want to read this, Phil?
When my first husband left me with 3 young children, I took loads of paracetamol. Luckily, it didn't work. But he wouldn't pay towards the children. Had to take him to court many times. It was very upsetting. Then Chrissy does go on to say that music, painting, and reading are very therapeutic.
They are.
I don't want to realize this, but there's something else that's very therapeutic, and we're already slightly late for.
She'll have been in hair and makeup by now. She'll be, what she's like.
Million dollars are waiting in the wing, let me tell you, because now let's introduce the glamour to Men's Radio that only works by saying, good afternoon, Chantal Rickards.
You're incorrigible, you two. You're like two naughty schoolboys winding each other up.
Of course we are, I know. Obviously, that's the joy. That's the whole joy. Before we say anything else, I want to get into something quite serious. Before we get into what you know, first, thank you again. Always never take it for granted, but there you are. It's lovely, regular as clockwork. Is that you? This week was sad for you and I and millions of other people with James Whale's news, and I had completely forgotten. You know, we've all got stuff going through our head, that you, of course, had worked with James as one of your close friends, and I was so moved, Chantal, to see you having lunch with James. How was he?
Well, you're right. It was the first time I was made a producer, working on an ITV show, which was bizarrely named the James Whale Radio Show, which indeed was television. And we made that together. I think we did the pilot in 1988, which is an awfully long time ago. And we've been buddies ever since. Clearly, I haven't seen much of James whilst I was living in America. I didn't see a lot of him, but we've always been in touch. And then one of our fellow colleagues from Yorkshire Television texted me last week to tell me that James's cancer had returned. He got kidney cancer 20 years ago and had one of his kidneys taken out at the time. I seem to remember that the tumour he found from actually being perfectly well, but they discovered very quickly that he had a tumour the size of a grapefruit on his kidney, so it was taken out. But sadly, his cancer has returned.
He showed me his scar. Bloody
No, I haven't seen the scar. Maybe.
Oh, you don't want to. We were sitting there having dinner. He said, "Take a look at this." He lifted up it. And I went, "Oh my God!" It was absolutely huge. Talk us through this, because James Whale, a great broadcaster, and a lot of people think, "Oh, I bet he's horrible," but you know him.
No, well, the thing is that James is a different person on radio to the person that he is normally. I don't think you are, because I think that what you see is what you get. But very much the Mr. Angry persona that James created was a creation for radio. So he is different. He's quiet. He's gentle. He's much more considered than you might think. He's not a sort of bullish, arrogant character at all. But for the radio, he comes out in a completely different way, and he, can be aggressive. He can be, he's a tough guy on radio, and slightly modelled on an American radio broadcaster. But it was novel when he started it in the UK all those years ago. And actually, it's been incredibly popular. It's a style of broadcasting that he really brought to the UK.
He did, didn't he? Yeah.
And he's been a very successful radio broadcaster, most particularly radio. He was on TV for about 8 years, running his own show, and then mainly went back to radio then.
And of course, now we know we can always find him when he's well enough to come back to us, is on my other home talk radio. So
indeed,
obviously, I mean, opposite ends of the day, but technically speaking, James Whale is now a colleague of mine, which is very exciting. Indeed. But he is, like I said, he's at the end of the day. We're at the start of the day. But
I sent him some messages on Twitter, and he came back straight away. Said it'd be lovely to catch up. I was very. I know that's not why you're here, but we do deal with mental health and well-being, and of course, cancer is one of the subjects which, unfortunately, I wish we could never discuss it again. But hey, it's a horrible part and a big part of life, and affects so many of our listeners. Yeah, and it's come back really aggressively this time. And
let's make no mistake, James has made it very clear he has vowed to fight it with everything.
And he's a fighter.
He has. I mean, for those that didn't follow the story, his initial reaction when finding out that it had spread through many parts of his body was he was going to go to Dignitas. He was going to jump on a train and head out to Switzerland. But he's rethought that in the last few days, and now he's back into fighting mode. And he's on immunotherapies, and he's actually looking much better than he was 2 or 3 weeks ago. So when I saw him on Monday, he was on terrific form. A little tired, but fighting spirit, definitely.
Can I ask you a question? I know you didn't expect to have this conversation, but you're a very senior person. You meet a lot of people, and you think. I've known you a long time, and you think. And I was asked a question. This is difficult. I'm not putting you on the spot at all, but I'm just curious with your view. No, I'm just curious with your view. Is that we had a guest this film, was it Wednesday, who last week had posted a suicide note on Facebook. And I reached out to him, and he was out. Phil and I made an exception, and we just talked to him for an hour. And the reaction from the listeners all over the world was extraordinary. This guy was talking to us from, he's an English guy, but he's lived in Australia, so it was live from Australia.
Yeah.
And people was, and he wanted to end it. And people were having not a pop at me. They were asking the question, and they have every right to do so. It's an open forum here. Russ, are you against people who want to go to Dignitas out of their own volition and end it? And I didn't answer because it wasn't pertinent to that conversation with Nick Jordan in Australia. And I wouldn't know what to say about that. If James made that decision, it's not. Would we try and would we? All right, let's say it's not James. Let's say it's person X. Let's not make it personal. Would we try and talk them out of it? Would we say, well, that's your decision. It's your life. Okay.
Personally, I wouldn't talk somebody out of it if I felt that the situation was as dreadful as it might be. I think it's an entirely personal decision. I think people should be allowed to go the Dignitas route if they want to, but you leave such emotional mess behind you when you commit suicide. And I've been on the sort of receiving end of that, and it's ghastly. But maybe if you discuss this stuff with your family, then it might be better for everybody. I don't know. I think it's an incredibly personal decision, and I certainly wouldn't think ill of anybody who did it.
Of course, there is a massive difference, though, between taking one's life because you believe the world would be better off without you, when you possibly have your entire life ahead of you, and when you have a terminal illness that is going to be treacherous, torturous, and really unpleasant to go through. Choosing to end your life that way with your family's consent is a very, very different matter, I personally think, to just ending it because you couldn't talk to other people around you. Look, Chantal, as we've rightly identified, you're absolutely not here for this.
Thank you. But your views, it's not often we get the chance to talk to you as wearing your other hat. And it's
we've ever had with you.
We appreciate it.
But may we just say, though, that before we go any further, that from the MRS team, all hail the whale. James Whale, get well very soon.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Totally
right. Let us crack on, okay? In true style, the show must go on because it's time. Ladies and gentlemen, grab onto your seats. It's time for this. Oh, yes, the time of the week where we get to just chill out a little bit here on Men's Radio, because in case you haven't noticed, it can get quite heavy on this show. So we like to take just a little breather to end the week's programming with the sensational Chantal Rickards, who talks all things television. Chantal.
Indeed. Well, lovely to be here. I mean, I should probably start with something light and frothy and bouncy, but actually I was going to start today by mentioning a show that I really should have mentioned 4 or 5 months ago when it came out on Netflix, our lovely friends at Netflix, called Unorthodox. It's now got, I think, 8 primetime Emmy nominations. I'm sure it will win a ton of awards. It's a very short drama series based on somebody's real life experiences. There are changes between the real life experience and the drama, but even so, it is absolutely worth watching. It's a German-American 4-part series about a young woman, a 19-year-old woman, who grows up in a Hasidic family in Williamsburg in New York. And it's really a story about empowerment, because she finds that she can't live the life that she has been destined to live inside that community. For those who don't understand the community, and I'm certainly not part of that community, it was an absolute eye-opener, but it's a wonderful human story. It's the first ever Netflix series recorded in Yiddish. So it's a brilliant, brilliant series. It really should be watched. It is about empowerment and getting out of a situation that you find difficult. And ultimately, it's a feel-good story, but it's really worth watching.
Can I make a terrible confession? Despite having so many people around me who've watched it, who've seen it, who've raved about it, it just doesn't appeal to me. I don't know what it is. I don't want to watch it, and I don't know why, because everyone says the same. They all say it's brilliant, and not to quote a famous radio show, you don't have to be Jewish. The truth is that it is very easy to follow. It just so happens it's about a Hasidic family, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's relevant to the actual drama. I don't know what it is.
Well, give it a go.
Give it a go. I mean, it may appeal more to women than men because it is a story about really female empowerment, but it is a brilliant story. And I think it's worth watching just as a great piece of drama.
Now, one of our listeners, and I've lost the blooming thread, Chantal, she said, please, 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 I think it may have been Andrea, please thank Chantal. It was the French Call My Agent. That was it. They said, oh, so that people listen, they hang on your every word, they go away, they go, yeah, this is great. I'd have never come across it. This is terrific.
Good. I'm really pleased. I don't think Phil was around last week when we talked about Call My Agent.
No, I wasn't.
But I was sort of dotting around the world trying to find some international things to talk about. So, but Call My Agent is good for those that didn't hear last week. It's a great drama. Silly, but a little bit silly, but fun.
I was scouring Welsh Valley.
Silly's good these days. Silly works for me. I have to say, silly is great. What else? Silly and
fun takes me to Saturday night on Channel 4. Russ, you will remember from our days at the Variety Club in London that the chairman before you was John Sachs, who is the son of Andrew Sachs, and famous for Fawlty Towers, for Manuel in Fawlty Towers. John was a radio broadcaster, as you know, and a lot of people, but then became a film producer. And produced a wonderful film that Film 4 is showing on Saturday night. It came out 2 or 3 years ago. And if you didn't see it, you absolutely should. It's called Finding Your Feet. I don't know if you saw it at the time. It's brilliant. It's got an absolutely stellar cast. Imelda Staunton, Celia Imrie, Tim Spall. I mean, it's really, really good. John
I did see it. Yeah.
You did?
Did it involve I'm going mad here. Did it involve a barge, a riverboat at the end?
It does, indeed.
I saw it in the cinema.
Yeah.
You see, your memory isn't all that, Russ.
What?
I said your memory isn't all that bad, you see.
It's shot to hell, I'll be honest with you.
But
it was a good film. We really loved that film. It was great.
It's really uplifting, and it's just a sort of perfect film for a Saturday night in the summer with, feet up on the telly and a takeaway. It's a really good movie. And
remind us of the title again,
John Sachs produced that. Sorry?
And remind us of the title once more.
Finding Your Feet on Film 4 on Saturday night.
I now have an excuse to do this from my Capital days. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God it's John Sachs.
Absolutely. He has a wonderful voice, John.
That was the jingle.
Yeah. Mrs.
Darling, how are you? John here.
I've made a discovery that I wanted to run past you both, because I know that I'm probably, as per flipping usual, way behind with the trends in terms of the television that's been available for goodness knows how long and the series that are out there. But I feel like now, during these unusual times, it is the chance to rediscover television series that have been and gone beforehand that maybe you missed the first time round. So I have discovered one myself called One of Us, which was a BBC drama. Now, the cast was, I'm not going to remember the cast off the top of my head, so I've got to have to look this up. So you can bear with me 2 seconds, but I know it's got a good cast. So this stars, right? Okay. So it was, you had Juliet Stevenson, Julie Graham's in this. Julie Graham was in the later series of Benidorm, amongst many other things. And also Joe Dempsey, who now he first rose to fame on an E4 series called Skins, a teenage drama. And it's got really quite a good lineup. Anyway, the premise of One of Us is about a family who the opening, the start of this is about the fact that two families who have been joined together by matrimony, in the sense that a son and a daughter from respective families got married, and it sounds brutal, it is pretty brutal, but they are murdered. And that's what you see. That's the opener. You see them, you see that they have been killed, and the story that follows And this is what they say is the sort of like the subtitles. Murder is just the beginning. In other words, it's what happens next. Because we've seen plenty of dramas where you have to find out who done it. Now, this is not a who done it. It's almost made quite clear from the word go who is guilty. But then you start to realize that the person who is guilty is maybe not as guilty as they first seem. Because I can't give too much away because otherwise it really will spoil it. But it's only a 3-part. No, but it's a 3-part series. So I think for that alone, it's worth watching because it's just like watching a long film. Oh, I beg your pardon. It might be 4-part. But even so, it's just a bit like watching a long film. But one way, I think it's really gripping. I believe it's on iPlayer. It's certainly on Netflix. It's called One of Us.
Excellent. And your recommendation of something that I hadn't heard of a couple of weeks ago, Defending Jacob, drama series on, I think it was Netflix, could have been Amazon, but I think it was, it wasn't. It was on Apple TV, exactly. I rattled through that in 24 hours earlier on in the week, and it's great. I mean, it's a good sort of pot boiler, who done it and why, and I enjoyed it. So good recommendation from you, that one, Phil.
Thank you. I have to confess, I'm an absolute disgrace. I've only got through 2 episodes. I do need to carry on watching.
You got to keep going.
I need to carry on watching it. But I tell you why. I know this is going to sound really, really lazy, but actually my access to Apple TV is quite limited in so much as I can only watch it on so many devices. And the devices that I can watch it on are not comfortable. So it's not the kind of thing that I can necessarily sit in front of the telly and watch, which makes me sound very hard done by and talk about first world problems. But that is my reason. So I will get around to it though.
But if it's on your phone or it's on your iPad, you can whoosh it to your TV screen.
This is very true. You can do what's called AirPlay, which I may well do.
Exactly, whooshing.
Is any of this show in English? I'm so lost. What can you do if it's on your phone? You can do what?
You can whoosh it. You can AirPlay it.
Who knew? Wow.
AirPlay.
Okay.
Yeah.
AirPlay.
Very useful.
All right. Okay. What else has come across?
So something else, I think, as you know, I got back from Wales a couple of weeks ago, and a part of my heart is always in Wales. But there is a brilliant BBC series that has sadly ended called Hinterland, which again was talking about the earlier programme that was recorded in Yiddish. This was filmed in English and then in Welsh. So they made 2 entirely separate series, recording it in 2 separate languages.
Literally recording it all over again. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Absolutely. And even in the English version, they occasionally drift into Welsh and then just put a few subtitles up. But not the whole programme is done in Welsh. But there is also a completely Welsh version. Hinterland is beautiful. It's filmed in Aberystwyth. Yes, it's a cop drama. And it's sort of, they talk about Scandi noir or Nordic noir. This is sort of Welsh noir, but made even more beautiful by the landscape. Welsh noir. There's a whole new thing now that we're going to talk about.
We can just invent subgenres as we go along.
Why not?
Great. Williamsburg noir.
Well, indeed. But that is worth watching. I think there were only 3 series, and then it came to an end. Sadly, I don't know why it actually came to an end, and it may be coming back. But it's a really, really good series, and the lead actor is tremendous. So for those that like a really good sort of solid British crime drama with no frills, that's it. The flip side of that is anybody who wants to get their head out of the UK and head to the Caribbean should watch Death in Paradise.
Oh, I love that show.
Total fluff on BBC One. It just takes you. It's filmed in Guadeloupe. I think right at the beginning they weren't sure it was going to be a success, so they always had to film in the off season. So you see this wonderful Caribbean island, and you can't quite work out why it always looks as though it's been raining, and that's because it's filmed in the off season.
I've watched since series 1.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Every single show, and it's ridiculously predictable.
Yeah.
I miss Danny John Jules. I thought he was very cool in that. I liked that he left under whatever circumstances. And I thought of all of them. Oh gosh,
Ardlo Hanlon and Chris Marshall were my 2 favorites.
I didn't like Ardlo. I really like Chris Marshall. I thought Chris Marshall was great.
Oh,
yeah, really. I loved that character. I thought it was
Yeah.
really interesting. I love that show.
It's brilliant.
You know what? But you produce TV. That is designed when we're sitting here and the weather's rubbish and you're fed up and you see this glamorous people with a simple whodunit. You know, it's really not very cerebral. And the weather's lovely and the scenery is lovely. You think, I feel better now. Even though someone's been killed, obviously.
And they always have great actors in it, you know, who come in each week, because everybody wants to work on it. Everybody wants to go out to Guadeloupe for a couple of weeks, and it's just fun. It's just joyful nonsense, but really good. And if it's something you haven't really watched before, you can just dip in and out of it. It's constantly on the iPlayer. I think it's also backed up on Netflix as well, so it's always there if anybody wants to see something.
I'm so pleased you said that, because I was scared if I said that you'd think, I know you're an idiot. I didn't realize what a big idiot you were. So Death in Paradise is one of my favorites. I have a question for you.
Very much along the lines. It sounds very similar, though, to the reason why people like Midsummer Murders, even though it's always about death. It's just something comforting.
It is. Completely and utterly. And it's still doing incredible ratings. I mean, I think it's still being viewed by about 8.5 million people, which is a really big audience. And you know, the fact that it's popular or populist doesn't mean it's bad. It's not bad. It's very well made.
I mean, it's
and
really well made.
You should be embarrassed by saying it's great, because it is.
Now, I got a question for you, putting on your producer hat. You know, you're the TV expert. Here's a question I don't understand. There is a series, and it was your comments about Death in Paradise that sparked this thought. Father Brown, the new Father, the Father Brown series, which has been running for ages with Mark. Can't remember. Not Mark Steele. It'll come back to me.
Can't remember.
He's in Harry Potter as well. Beautiful series, fabulous acting, really good plots, beautifully made. It's on in the afternoon. It's never made it as an evening show, and I just don't. I don't get it. It's a really solid show.
Mark Williams.
Thank you very much.
Indeed.
Mark Williams. Thank you, Phil. I couldn't think of the name.
Rattle the brain somewhere.
Why has no one said this is a good? You know, people love Death in Paradise. They would love Father Brown. It's really very entertaining.
Don't know the answer, but I mean, if it had been doing really good ratings in daytime, it probably would have been moved up into prime time. But clearly, that hasn't happened. But
Kimmy Lashmar says that I'm now into Doc Martin.
Oh, very good.
Love Doc.
Is it? I've never seen one episode. That's shocking. Never seen one.
Do you know what? It's so brilliantly bonkers, because it is. You know, if you have imagine someone who doesn't suffer fools gladly, then picture them being surrounded by a village full of fools. It's just genius. It is so beyond brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean, Martin Clunes, who by all accounts is one of the nicest people, and yet he comes across as this absolute so-and-so of a doctor that no one in their right mind would go to. He's got he appears to have the bedside manner of Stalin, but yet
on a good day.
At the same time, because he's the only doctor in the village, as it were. Of course, people keep going to him, and I do not know who came up with the twist, but to make him fearful of blood, genius, absolute genius. Who on earth has got is it homophobia, I think it is, or something like that? Is that
is it a meta? No, I can't remember which phobia it is, but
bloodophobia.
Exactly.
Bloodophobia.
Yes,
but again, it's very similar in a way to Death in Paradise. It's predictable. You sort of know what you're going to get, and it's so British and beautiful, and the scenery is fabulous.
Yeah,
and Martin Clunes is great.
It is hemophobia. I've just looked it up just in case I watched. But yeah,
right.
So, I mean, to make him hemophobic is genius.
Yeah.
Very interesting when you take actors and as they get older, instead of just being thrown under the bus, they find proper roles. You know, if you look at Men Behaving Badly, you got two absolute Herberts sharing a flat. They're two idiots. I mean, they're just two complete idiots. And they've both become, of course they weren't, they were playing those parts, but they've grown into, you know, terrific actors, which they were anyway. And the roles are totally relevant to their current age, and it really works. I always find that very satisfying. as opposed to someone going, "Oh God, look, I remember him from 50 years ago, and now he's got some crappy little bit part." It's really good when they do that. I'll tell you what was on.
Totally enough time. Totally enough time.
Tales of the Unexpected is back.
Tales of the Unexpected. Have you got any quick fire suggestions?
Very quick fire suggestion. If you haven't seen it, watch a film called Baby Driver that's on Sky Cinema.
Oh, I love that.
That's it. That's what time for. I'm sorry.
Good choice. Good choice.
Chantal Rickards, thank you. Thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you to all of our guests who have appeared today, because of course we had Todd Sharpville. We also had the sensational Michael Derrig Adams as well.
Wasn't he good?
Them absolutely marvelous. And of course, thank you for watching and for listening and joining in with this peculiar output that Russ and I do every single Monday, Wednesday and Friday, but we love it. We're back on Monday from midday, so do join us then. Have yourself a marvelous weekend, whatever you're up to. Be safe, be happy, and just remember, whatever happens, we're here. We'll get through it together, I tell you. Wouldn't you agree, Russ? Russ, see you tomorrow.
Totally. Yes. Yes.
You've been
and
warned.
Timmy. Oh God.
Bye, everybody.